That was quick, Britt. I thought I'd have like 3 seconds at least before it, actually went live. But I just popped on right before it clicked over to 421. So I think at this point, I don't even really need to introduce you. But for the sake of ceremony, I will say I am the Laughing Ogre. And I owe my existence to the gentleman that's with me. And who are you, sir?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am TheBritisher, and I come from where the history is from.
Ah, yeah. Boy, that was an old school one, too. Love that.
It's funny how you mention how this took a very short time to come on. Ladies and gentlemen, what we are talking about here is the fact that when we press go live on the actual software, it usually takes a number of seconds before it actually kicks in and we are visible to you. And the same at the end. Sometimes you can press the button to go off air and you immediately go off. But at other times, you can be sitting around for almost 30 seconds wondering what's happening. Why isn't it ending? We have our theories about this. We think that there may be possibly, algorithms running in the background, basically, checking speech or whatever that YouTube run. And therefore, this time around, it was rather remarkable that pretty much a second or two after the ogre pressed the button, we were on air, which is highly unusual.
It's almost like they were listening to us. And they realized, because we were saying, we don't want people to hear it. And it's not, we're not talking bad about anybody. But of course, the Britisher and I, we have our own lives and we have our own opinions about all kinds of things. And there are some things that we're going to share with you all. Hi, RPR. Good to see y'all. Probably the last one I'll shout out like that. It's just always good to see RPR, Britt, for me. There's a few and others, but there's a few.
Above all, he's British.
He's British and he's Welsh. He got
well, we can't be perfect. I mean, we can't all be perfect, so we'll forgive him the Welsh bit. Yes.
No, I put that in his good column, but also he was the one that wrangled Undoomed for us that day.
Yes,
and he's always there. He's always there. He's one of our very trusted.
I'll do a bet he's very good at choral harmonies, being Welsh.
No, I'm not sure about that. He can play a mean bass, though. He really is, and he's a good songwriter. I happen to know those things. Co-writer on the little bullshit that we did.
Yes, all Welsh are musical fetishists. We all know that over here in Britain.
I can't, so I ain't gonna speak to that. I got too many Welsh people that are watching. I don't have no idea. When you say musical fetishes, that's I don't want anybody to mistake what that means. What is a fetish man, British? Do you know what that is?
Well, I mean, given that I'm talking to somebody who knows about divinity, I feel I'm kind of I'm on the wrong end of the slope here. So I'll let you take over.
But wise enough to know what most people wouldn't. Wise enough to know what most people, and what I mean by that is you said, oh, Ogre, you have a master's in divinity, whatever that means. That and $1.50 will get me a cup of coffee. But and fetish man, and to a fetish doesn't. We always think sex, right? Human minds wired for sex.
It's definitely not. It's been rendered into something of a sexual vocabulary, but its origin is clearly it's
clearly not.
It's anchored in worship. Yes,
absolutely in worship. In fact, a fetish man would have been what we term as a witch doctor. A fetish man, in fact, the term originates in somewhere where we would call now modern Nigeria. In darkest Africa, and they would have these fetish men, and they would very often have a fetish stick, and their fetish stick would be what we would see as a small totem pole, and this fetish stick would have the other witch doctors before him carved in from greatest on the bottom to less on the top, which he would be on the top. Whoever held the stick, he would have carved his own self on the top, and then of course, and then you have to see these things. These things were great monstrosities, Britisher. Sometimes the fetish man would be walking around with a fetish stick that was 8-9 feet long, and the top 3 feet were not yet done. And that was their way of saying that.
But could they make someone else be struck by lightning?
Oh no. Well, of course yes. I mean, yes. No, let me be in character. Of course they could. They
Well,
could
no,
bring the
I'm
lightning,
just,
they could cause sickness,
I'm
but
just
in reality,
wondering because, of course, quite a few people who watch the skeptics online will be familiar with a certain clip that did the rounds some time ago. But I
the
think it was a
science clip.
school. It was a school in South Africa, wasn't it?
Yes.
Where they were all trying to tell us about, you know, the domestic natural sciences of Africa, and when somebody eventually in the back row said, "But it's not true," the outrage factor was just spectacular. Do you recall that at all?
Oh yes. And the two girls that were like shouting down and saying basically that science was racism, and that
Yes.
their science was as feasible as biogenetics and all of these wonderful things that we have now. And it just like, no, that's bunk. Fetish men can bring down the fire from heaven.
Yes.
And that's
of course, it comes in with that famous, that lovely verbiage, decolonizing science, decolonizing academia, which, of course, someone like myself, who, of course, sits here in a red coat with a pith helmet on, because, ladies and gentlemen, as you can no doubt imagine, I sit here looking exactly as my avatar does.
most of the time, yes, most of the time.
You can imagine how that tickles me to hear some highly militant students who, were they in any other country, they would have, pierced noses and blue hair,
big plates in their lips,
but they would be sitting there saying they want to decolonize science. But I mean, we shouldn't point to that school in South Africa in particular, because as the week that was just showed, the Americas and Britain can do that just the same. I mean, over here we've got talk at Cambridge at decolonizing the English faculty, the history faculty, and art history faculty. And yes, at the same time, I also had a piece about mathematics being racist. And it's just, yes, it makes the mind boggle what is going on right now at the universities.
Absolutely.
To the point where I was really pained reading that stuff originally. And therefore, I actually felt it was necessary for me to acknowledge that when I was actually reading it to the audience, because I kind of knew that I was causing them untold agony as I was going on. Because I think to a certain extent, when we hear certain things that are abjectly stupid, it does actually have some sort of effect on us. It isn't just that we grow irritated and whatever. I think to a certain extent, stupidity can actually hurt us.
Oh, it can hurt us for sure. Ignorance and stupidity is a dangerous thing. Not always, but I mean, let's face it, if you don't understand that it's not a wise thing to go out on the ice before it's 2 inches thick. I mean, you're standing on the shore where the land freezes and the ice is thicker, and you don't realize that unless it's 2 inches thick when you get out 8 feet away from the land, well, it'll kill you. And
I mean, here's an interesting thought for you. I mean, you being the religious type, Mr. Ogre, which is which is a bit of a meme between the two of us, ladies and gentlemen. If Jesus were alive today, would he really be throwing the moneylenders out of the temple? Or would he be heading to the universities and physically throwing some of the professors out of the universities, possibly even defenestrating them?
One could only think that because of his motivation, that he would be throwing the professors out, that he would be standing next to Jordan Peterson, Christ-like in his appearance and his mannerisms, giving the benediction over his new apostle, Dr. Peterson. And, that he would be saying, look, yeah, I love all you transgenders, but logic rules. I would hope that Jesus, and I believe, because I love him, I believe that once real character that may or may not be in some people's mind alive right now, would stand with reason and logic, Britisher. That's what people, because everybody's like, oh, he's that's in that. Everybody wants to assign to Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, whoever they follow, what it is that they want to think is right. But no. Let's face it. You hit the nail on the head, brother. If Jesus was walking, he wouldn't be talking to the tax collectors at this point. No. Maybe later if he got all the other work done, but he would be going right to Antifa and right to the right-wing crazies and the Vox days, and he'd be saying, look, y'all got it wrong. I agree.
Given that you touched on Jordan Peterson, there was of course also that lovely bit of news that there had been some militants who were posting up posters around his neighborhood. I don't know if you caught that story, Mr. Ogre.
Yeah, I've seen that this week. Yes.
They were pretty much saying he was a Nazi sympathizer. He was with the alt-right. And this is basically posted up within his neighborhood with a photo of his on. And you just see that and you just go, you know that is not true. But basically the person who produced this, or the people who produced this, they know that this is not true.
Oh, they know, absolutely.
Know it's not that it's not true. And yet they will put this up because they will do anything to damage the man.
Anything. No morals.
When you're, given that these seem to have been printed, so, we're not just talking something that came out of an inkjet printer or something like that, but this was more than likely properly printed. The infuriating thing for Peterson must be that they were more than likely printed at the university by militant professors that don't like him. And when they then actually even come to the conclusion that, on that poster, it says that the administration of the university has not done anything, has not made any move towards firing him, as though that would be the natural suggestion of what ought to be done to the man. They were literally advocating that this person ought to be fired on the basis of their not agreeing with him and his not agreeing with them. I really, when I see things like that, I just do not understand what goes on in those people's minds. It's so alien to me. But then, I've said it to you once or twice, haven't I, Mr. Ogre, that sometimes I feel autistic. I feel as though some part of the human experience is beyond me, that I just do not understand certain motivations people have. I can see you're avidly stuck.
Oops,
in the
I was muted. My dang old mouse. I was trying to I was kind of trying to come over to unmute myself. But don't we all? What happened to me is today I had the final word number 1, and I don't even know. I don't even want to really say much other than Britisher. There was a rumor apparently about a week ago or 2 weeks ago that I was getting out of YouTube. That. I don't even know. It was like all these things swirling around. Lord only knows where they came from. It wasn't from you, yourself, myself, or Common Senseguy. So I'm going through to make a final word number 2. It's not, and I think you understand, people took the final word to mean, oh, it's his final word, and they took that as a correlation, as something that was a substantial evidence that, yes, I was leaving. And here's the facts. Not only wasn't I leaving, but that prompted me. What I'm trying to say is, I think that yourself, myself, and the Common Senseguy are all in the spectrum. I was listening to some of his final words, excuse me, and he's come a long way. He's starting to come out of his shell. And as I listen to all of our final words, it's really where you get the measure of who we are. because we all, even myself, not always, but we try to be amicable and agreeable, and we have these discussions, and we don't want to full out be exactly what we are. Even you, Brett, we all know in the comments, because we don't want to be dicks. You know, we want to get our licks in, but we want to be. And as he comes out of his shell more, oh yeah, I think we're all. I don't want to say we screech. You know, we don't have a lot of autistic screeching, but we all have these ideas that, you know, you have to consider things that most people don't to come to the conclusions that you come to, Britisher. And you have to say the same for myself. I mean, I may or may not agree with all the conclusions you come to. You may not agree with all the conclusions I come to, but you have to agree that when you listen to the Common Sense, the guy has taken an inordinate amount of time to consider things that most people don't think about. And that's, you know, here's my final on this. The world needs us, for lack of better term, crazies, Britisher. The world needs us. Because where would you be without me? Where would I be without you? We would both be like, and you don't have a lot. We don't have a lot. They don't have a lot. We all need a voice that is there, that is not our own. And I hope, look, before we go into this news, I'm just going to say this. Lionel Nation, you've been called. We wonder, as much as I like you, man, I watch you every day. And there was the whole thing, the British I had behind the scenes, because I use the word troll too much. And the word troll has got these bad connotations. But Brett, you came right out and you said some really cool things that were like a gentle poke. And look, I don't think Roger Stone should be kicked off of YouTube, Britisher. But like I said in the stream that you weren't on, you made me admit one day, I'm not going to buy a used car from Roger Stone, nor do I believe everything the bloody moron says, period. But I don't think he should be off. But it's just what's getting me, and I'm absolutely done here because I want you to talk about this. Why are these people suddenly going from, not like Roger Stone now, don't get me wrong, but I'll say Alex Jones, I will say Lionel Nation. Why are they going from seeming so Oozaloo style centrist to like pundits, period?
Well, I mean, first off, regarding the Roger Stone thing, I think, I mean, I don't know whether I've read that they've permanently banned him, and I've read that they've just suspended him. I don't know which one of those two is the truth. As such, yes, more than likely, he broke the rules. And if you break the rules, then chances are, yes, you get suspended. With others, I've been, much more, I've been much more charitable, because when I saw what happened with Milo and whatever, I didn't necessarily think that he had really broken the rules. And given what was going on in that particular exchange, I really don't think it was fair. When it comes to Sargon of Akkad, that's just outrageous. I mean, he was actually having a ding dong with alt-righters, and then got punished for it, and still doesn't know why. But when it comes to Roger Stone, the tweets are actually on record, and he did completely go off on a bender. I mean, there is no other way of describing it. He completely lost it. And frankly, yes, you can't do that.
Well, but I do that, Brett, and you suffer me. So should we suffer? So what you're saying is that it's cool that you suffer when I go all, let's call it Roger Stone. And that's okay, but the greater public shouldn't.
Well, but Twitter is a public forum, and you have to understand that there are certain rules that are set, as in how people should conduct exchanges between each other. As in, look, you can disagree with each other, you can swear, you can but look, you stay within relative bounds of civility. Whereas with Roger Stone, what caused it was that basically he just completely lost it, and it just turned into a stream of verbal excrement. And you just thought, no, I'm sorry, but at some point they have to draw the line.
Yeah, and I have to say that I am not Roger Stone. I'm not that kind of public figure. So, it is.
That's when I sort of thought, well, yes, they more than likely had to do something, and he brought this on himself. and I've since completely forgotten. Oh yes, you went to say Alex Jones and Lionel. Well, when it comes to Alex Jones, I don't think he has in any way really shifted position. I mean, he never made a secret of the fact that he was completely on board with Donald Trump.
Oh, wait, but before, hang on, Brett. I don't know how long can it, before you continue on, because I want you to get the gist of what I'm saying too. How long have you followed or listened to the things that Alex Jones says? How long have you known who he is and actually like listened to at least one of his broadcasts a month?
I mean, you know, I'm more than likely I'm familiar with Alex Jones for a year or two, something like that.
Well, so let me tell you, before Donald Trump came on board, and not really right then, it wasn't like, I don't want to give you the idea, and anybody in the chat, correct me if I'm wrong, if you know who Jones is, I don't want to give you the idea that he suddenly changed, but you look at the Obama deception. You look at the one, what was the one with G.W. Bush? He left-right paradigm didn't matter. He never supported George W. Bush, even a little tiny, no Republican, nobody, Brett. He basically said, if they're not an individual you know, and that you know people that know them, and they can show that they're a down-home person, don't vote for him. It's a left-right paradigm, Coke and Pepsi. He went from that, Brett, to saying, oh, I really like this Donald Trump guy. He's really, and don't get me wrong, from what I see, he's got some issues and stuff, but he is different than the other politicians. That could be it, but he is now suddenly doing what we see. Lionel, man, look, I want to be careful because I want to have these people on, Britt, especially Lionel.
I mean, Lionel has definitely shifted. There's no doubt about it.
Definitely shifted. You can see it.
Lionel was the one who was effectively saying a plague on both your houses.
That was Alex Jones. Look, I'm not going to keep cutting you off. That's what I'm saying.
So he was basically a plague on both your houses, and yes. His argument was clearly right from the start that Hillary Clinton was as bent as could be, but his view was also that Donald Trump was a waste of time.
Yes,
and now you can just basically see that whenever news comes out that either, you know, portrays the Democrats in a bad light or criticizes in any Trump, what will happen is he will either go, you know, you just need to look at the titles that he picks for his videos.
Yes.
You know, idiot, moron, Democrat, you know, you know what to expect
of Emit wearing socialist Clinton.
Yes, and at the same time, when it comes to attacks on Trump, there is almost an anger that you perceive about it, and you sort of feel, well, I'm not sure about this, because surely you were the person who at the beginning was basically telling us, look, they're both ridiculous. So either he has since had some kind of road to Damascus moment, or it was never really, or he was never really quite so centrist, if you know what I mean.
Here's the thing that makes me swing.
If I can just finish on this point, because otherwise I'll forget it.
No, carry on.
What I see with both himself and with Alex Jones is more than likely that they've, in a way, realized which way the greenback is blowing. Which, of course, we've also seen with this, what was this lady called? The black lady, something red pill, who had a doxing website set up, and she was recently on Dave Rubin's show. And
somebody tell us who that is. Slip my mind.
Basically, she was basically clearly a social justice advocate, very hard line, and now she is suddenly a conservative, and she's criticizing SJWs, and she's doing all these things, and you can't help but feel that it's just nothing else but opportunism, because she's realized that there is no way, really, unless you're Lacey Green, of breaking through on the social justice side online. But if you are on the conservative side and you make the right noises and you've got the right persona on camera and you're pretty, you can make a really good living for yourself.
Yeah, Tommy Lauren, whatever her name is.
Precisely. And you look then at Lionel and Alex Jones, and in a way they know that when it comes to the Trump camp, there are few media voices that represent them. And yet they are they're very numerous in number. They're very strong in number. So that means that you get to divide up an audience that is large among very few voices that cater for them. Yeah. And I think that's where they've more than likely realized that they have got a ready market which they can kind of speak to directly. They can be the voice of the people who are the Trump supporters and want Hillary locked up and so on. That they can effectively give voice to that and be the representatives in the media of those people. And of course, at the same time, they will garner those audiences. I really think that's the thinking behind it.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm fiddling with that other technology, like I said, Brett, and I just found out something terrible. My hat, Wi-Fi or whatever, Bluetooth, it doesn't even warn me. It just went from, oh, this is really interesting, to Bluetooth off. The funny thing is, too, I'm not even kidding, Brett, all the voices on this, it's like, Bluetooth on. And then when you turn it off, it's like, your Bluetooth off. And then it's like, powing. I mean, it's so Chinese. The voice, you get what I'm saying? I hope that voice was enough to you. So anyway, I lost the last little chunk of that, but I think I got the gist. This is the deal for me. This is what's got me thinking. Gerald Celentes. Okay, look, Orange Shriver, David Knight, Alex Jones, that was a little swayer for me, because I'm telling you, he went from this guy that was, it don't matter. He got arrested for calling GW out for 9/11, man. He's been arrested like 96 times. He went from that to, he had the candidate for president on his show, Brett. And to people that don't know who Alex Jones is, they go, oh, well, Ogre, he had the president on. He was back. No. He doesn't know this guy. If you listen to his old stuff, he would say, that's what he would say. I don't know him. Yeah, he seems different. He's saying different stuff. But the fact of the matter is, he could be set up just like anybody else. And I don't know, man. I don't want to believe it because of what I see. And this is what I believe, especially with Gerald Celentes, Lionel Nation, to a smaller degree, Alex Jones. Things are starting to look so unbelievably good from this vantage point. And the vantage point I'm talking about is the vantage point that stops funding for worldwide abortions, no matter what they're for, no matter what they call it, no matter what humanitarian thing they label it with. The kind of good things that stop spending money on everything worldwide, in my mind. As long as we have one hungry child in the United States, as long as there's one mentally disturbed man in an alleyway in New York, Britisher, as long as there is one human being in my country that needs help and isn't getting it, well, don't give me the crying, bleeding heart. Don't give it to me. I would hope that you would agree with me that that would extend to your country, as long as there's one in Britain. And maybe not that said. I mean, I don't know. Everybody's different. But I think that may be the shift. I don't know, man. It's hard for me because I refuse, Britisher, as much as I gave a little apologia yesterday on a stream that I did where I had zero cool. You've seen what was going down. And at the end, I told the truth. I would like if things would just simmer down a little bit. Let them do the thing with Manafort or whatever they're going to do. Let the whole thing, everything play out. And let the administration roll forward. I wish to God they would do that. Maybe Fox and CNN could get together and they'd say, let's get split at 50-50. Instead of us filleting him nationally every night from 6 to 11, instead of us debasing him every night from 6 to 11, why don't we get together and actually report on what's going on that's good in our country and what's going on that's bad? Let's not put our opinion in it. If it's monetary, and Brett, please hate on me if you need to, and I'm just about to put the period on it. I'll say it again. For me, it's why are we give so much aid? We got wars going on. We have soldiers here, there, hither, and yon. We have all this insanity taking place that has absolutely nothing to do with anything. Somebody just sticks on the catchphrase Britisher. It's making Americans less safe if they stop doing insert whatever political agenda they want here. I mean, wouldn't it be a better world if we just minded our own business? Like that was the long way to say that. Wouldn't it just be better if we just all minded our own business, paid our own bills, and stopped worrying about abortion, guns, all these stupid things that are distractions to me?
Okay, short answer, no. When it comes to America, I mean, America is clearly it's the big stick. In that regard, America is now what once the British Empire was. And to a certain extent, it does make you the global policeman. What you are basically saying is we shouldn't get involved in all these adventures and things like that. That is entirely true, yes. The thing is not to get involved at all. The question is to get involved in the right things. And that is where one requires some kind of wisdom. As in, what do you commit your troops to? When do you get involved? Not, oh, should you get involved? And then that just means you just get involved in everything. Or, you know, shouldn't you get involved? And that just means you stay out of everything, no matter what kicks off. I mean, you know, in that regard, it's worth remembering that America was late to the First and the Second World War. So, you know, in that respect, yes, it's worth being out there and committing yourself to the right cause. But we all know that the Iraq War was not the right cause. We all know that the warmongering around Syria and the deliberate destabilization of Syria was not the right cause.
No.
We know that, I mean, this was clearly the fault of Sarkozy in France and Cameron in Britain. We know that what happened to Libya was not the right cause. That is where we need wisdom. That's where we need leaders who are smart, who are insightful, who are also of the right character, who can make the call. When is it worth putting American lives on the line? What is worth that price? Some things will be, because you just need to realize that it's a globe and it's not that big a world. So if you just retreat from everything, sooner or later it will come and bite you up the backside. When it comes to certain programs, there are very worthwhile programs out there which Western governments are funding. So, for example, when it comes to vaccinations, which are really achieving serious successes at the moment, where it looks as though we have pretty much kind of pushed certain diseases into now really only occurring in 1 or 2 more countries.
Are you just practicing being a troll now? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, I mean,
okay, carry on.
These basically, you know, where we've got.
I'll wait this out. So you were saying vaccines. Carry on.
Yes. I mean, for example, you know, long ago, we got rid of smallpox. I think the last case was in India, and that was a global effort. Now we've got, is it polio and things like that, which now are only occurring in some parts of Pakistan or Afghanistan and Nigeria, I believe. Whereas in the rest of the world, it seems to have been wiped out. If you can get rid of it completely, then that in the end, in the long term, also protects the United States of America. It protects Britain, it protects Europe, it protects everybody. It is in everybody's interest. So when it comes to things like that, when it comes to those international efforts, it's well worth putting money on the table. But again, that doesn't mean that every single international effort, anything with the United Nations stamp on it, is worthwhile. But for example, if you're also providing food aid when there is a famine somewhere, what you are doing by feeding those people is not just merely keeping them alive. You are also making sure that they don't all just wander off into other countries and cause untold mayhem. So there are good things about these international efforts, and we shouldn't forget that. But there are also billions and billions wasted simply because it's kind of almost been turned into an industry of money spending in certain countries where in the end what matters is that the money is spent rather than what it's being spent on.
Oh, well, yeah, of course.
And that's why a lot of it disappears in corruption, and a lot of it disappears into absolutely ludicrous projects. I mean, I think the Common Senseguy and myself once told you about there being a girl band. I think was it in Kenya? I'm not sure.
Yeah,
that was actually financed by a British government aid because they were seen as a means of spreading an anti-AIDS message or something like that. And you just thought, I'm sorry, but once you're actually financing girl bands, something has gone wrong with your overseas aid system. And in that respect, there would be many in Britain who would very much agree with you, Olga, and I include myself, that we are spending too much on overseas aid. It should be dramatically reduced and should be concentrated solely on the essential work. Anything that is not essential should go by the wayside immediately. But again, what you require is good people to actually sit down and oversee this stuff. And
well, that's almost impossible.
What sort of people are being put in place by our governments to overview this stuff, and how many people, you know, between where the money is actually spent at the coalface and where those decisions are made, how many people eventually are helping themselves or helping their friends, and funneling monies into Cypriot bank accounts, if you forgive the pun.
No, that's good. That's good. I'm trying to work in, I shouldn't ruin it, but I'm gonna, the intellectual hinterland. Forgot that one, did you? Did you forget it?
Yeah, you're not giving up on my use of the terminology hinterland, are you?
That was, I mean, because it was just so Miller-esque. I guess I would have to say. I would say Dave Miller, but it's not Dave Miller. It's the comedian Miller. Very intelligent guy. He's always cracking these jokes. And I think I was about 12 years old when I looked up what hinterland meant. And it was because Miller, why am I not thinking of his first freaking name? They had him as
the only thing you've put into my mind right now is Miller time, and I don't even drink.
No. Well, that was one of his things on Saturday Night Live, and they had him as an announcer on the NFL, Britt, but he was too smart. I mean, even watching the comedy, Dennis Miller, of course, Dennis Miller. I don't know if anybody's shot that out yet, but I can't believe I didn't think of it right away. The level of intelligence it took to get the jokes. If you and I were watching him right now, I guarantee you, with you there, we'd probably get 4 out of 5. When I'm sitting there by myself, I get about 3 out of 5. I'm guessing you probably would too. And then we'd get that extra one because we were there to put our heads together and go, oh, yeah, that's why that's funny. But that's the kind of humor it is. Your average everyday person, I don't know. Go check out some Dennis Miller, folks. I mean, if you get every joke, you have an IQ of 145 or above. That's my guess. That's the kind of, I mean, and I don't know if he was the first. I doubt it through humanity because it seems like nothing's new. But in my generation, he was the only one. He was the only comic that I knew of that getting the jokes did depend on how intelligent you were.
Yeah, well, I think there are also people like Stephen Fry, aren't there, here in Britain?
Yeah,
who
he's not
again
bad.
can be extremely highbrow. I mean,
no
he perfected a certain sort of comical condescension when he played Jeeves in Jeeves and Wooster with Hugh Laurie. And he has basically continued in that persona ever since. Because chances are it was somewhat in his persona to start with, but when you see his earlier comedy, it wasn't like that at all. Whereas now he is just the kind of posh Oscar Wilde character who just snipes at people with wit, and preferably does so in a very, very condescending tone, which more than likely sounds deeply hypocritical coming from me. But there you go.
Well, they always look at, when you look at a bit of Fry and Laurie or Jeeves and Wooster, you always assume that Stephen Fry was the brains of the bunch, but I mean, House, and it's not just because of that. They're both very smart guys, and often like Stan Laurel and Oliver Hardy, oftentimes the guy that usually plays the dummard, the dumpkin, whatever you want to call him, the stooge, he may be the smartest one of the group. But both those guys are really smart, man. You know as well as I do, Britt, with with Oliver and Hardy, it was definitely Stan Laurel, man.
He was Stan Laurel. He was the one who wrote everything. Yes. Oliver Hardy was really just a comic actor who worked with him.
Yep, he had good timing with his friend.
And Stan Laurel just basically perfected things that I think they got put together early on as a kind of tryout to see whether they would work.
Hal Roach.
It was Stan Laurel who basically realized we could make something of this, and he wrote all the scripts. And of course, the longer they worked together, the more he realized how he could play those characters off against each other. And yes, it was a masterpiece. There's no doubt about it. It's an absolute crime that so many young people today are completely unfamiliar with things like Charlie Chaplin and what's he called? What was the Harold Lloyd? Do you remember the guy who was hanging from the clock?
Hang on, give me a second. Yeah, he had a lot of stuff fall around him. Also, Buster Keaton.
Yeah, that was Buster Keaton, the one with the one with the house falling in. Harold Lloyd famously was the one who was hanging from a clock on a skyscraper in New York.
Oh, I thought you were trying to get me to think of someone. So Harold Lloyd.
When it comes to people like that, I was completely familiar with them in my childhood. And I mean, I may be in my late 40s, but I'm not that old. But it was just simply, it was staple, on television. You would just get to see these things. Whereas by now they all seem to have gone by the wayside, because the television companies have decided that they somehow can't expect millennials to cope with anything but colored images. So if it's black and white, it just won't be put on television because it's kind of understood to be beyond the comprehension of the millennial audience, which I just find just appalling, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, imagine how many great films it means never get seen. And the reason they don't get seen is because they're in black and white. And then, of course, Hollywood gets it into its mind to, remake them with you know, Ben Affleck playing Humphrey Bogart as Casablanca, the new version, if you know what I mean.
Lord.
You just want to scream. You just want to go and drown yourself in the sea.
That's yeah.
You know,
That's
but
terrible.
imagine how many classic movies have been remade, and then just begin asking yourself how many of them have really just been remade so they're in a new format, whereas they never needed remaking in the first place.
Yeah. Lots of them.
Sorry, I'm going off on a wild tangent here. I'm sorry.
That's cool. No, I actually sent the Hangout link to Weltschmerz stories. I don't know if he'll swing by or not. If he does, he does. But I haven't even touched the news, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful. We probably should look at it eventually. Just been nice to talk and all these things. I mean, stuff comes up, and the dichotomy has got me, Brett. And I won't lie to you or anybody else. What I see right now, what I see with my eyes, is someone that is, dude, if you look at the way our government's set up with the executive branch, the legislative branch, the judicial branch, I see an extremely good person at the head of the executive branch right now that if you just look at what's been going down, I mean, they're getting, and I don't really want to get into the whys and wherefores. And if they're passing the tax reform right now. For us, for myself and Mrs. Ogre, I will grant you, especially Brett, this. He overstated a lot of stuff while he was running. And for me, it still is rough because whereas I don't subscribe to the Nazi thing, it does now feel a little bit beer hallish. I don't know how else to say it. Because no, he should have been more specific about what kind of wall. Yeah, I've heard I heard them all, man. He never said there would be bricks from sea to shining sea on the Mexican border. Never said that once. But he said it to make it sound like that so loudly that when he explained that some of it would be natural border, natural, you can't cross it because it's a desert, whatever, and all these other things, who cared? Nobody heard that. And then he blamed the press for saying, well, they only said the part that I shouted loudest and long. Anyway, what I'm saying is, to make a long story short, it was good to talk because I don't know what's going on. Lionel, a lot of people that I used to listen to because it didn't matter to them what, didn't seem to be a side, Brett. It's now there's suddenly seems like there's a side. And if it was just Donald Trump, I guess it would just be Donald Trump. But in the case of some of these folks, and I already said some names, I'm not going to say them again. I'm not trying to make no enemies with these big shots, Brett. But, it seems like it's extending to the entire clan, and at that point, it's like, daggone it, man. Politics I don't think was, especially in the way we do it, the British and the Americans, the way we do it, is it was never supposed to be tribal or clannish to this extent. I don't believe that for a minute. It was supposed to be vote which way you thought was supposed to be good, and that was it. Now it's Coke or Pepsi, man. I'm sticking with that too. I don't care. I'm still skeptical that the upper up muckamucks that put GW in place when he probably shouldn't have been president. He didn't win. I mean, he should have. Who knows? His brother kept Florida, the whole, and I'm sticking with that, Britisher, without going on, because obviously you want to speak.
Well, as I say, when it comes to the whole Coca Pepsi thing, I think it is deeply, deeply unhealthy. And one of the things that is worth pointing out is that it is a great threat to the whole system. We shouldn't forget what happened in history when it comes to these Coca Pepsi moments. Because what happens is the two parties, be they Coke or Pepsi, just disappear off into the extremes to the points where no compromise is ever possible between the two of them. And both of them begin loathing each other with such hatred, so much so that they will slap each other across the face, as we can see here. But they loathe each other with such hatred that eventually winning is just of such paramount importance that one simply cannot afford. One cannot afford to let the other side win. One cannot lose, because it would just be the ultimate calamity. And once you have a democracy in which both sides basically see losing as a catastrophe, where they cannot understand that they need to share, that this whole thing basically belongs to both sides. It's a question of us and not just, you know, my side and their side, and mine is good and theirs is evil. But in the end, it still must be the United Kingdom. It still must be the United States of America. But if you start thinking solely in the terms of the other side is the enemy and must be defeated at all cost, and cannot under any circumstances be allowed to win, that's when you're heading towards trouble. That's when you yourself become the enemy of the whole political system. Not merely the enemy of the other side, but the enemy of the whole country, of the whole political system, because sooner or later you're going to bring it crashing down. And, you know, we only need to look at things like the Weimar Republic, or even more historical, the fall, you know, of the Roman Republic, to kind of realize that once things become so intransigent, once things become so impossible that it's just abject hatred between the two sides, they tear the whole thing asunder. But anyway, before I keep going on my rant here, I see that Weltschmerz Stories has joined us.
Yes, good
Guten
evening,
Abend.
gentlemen.
Good to see you, sir. We were talking. I think I can just get this little chip. I got to throw the whole thing out there. We'll look like a couple. But we were saying before the stream. You know what, man? I think that you Stories. You're one of the most genuinely nice and genteel people that I've ever met. I just want to take my hat off to you and say that.
Thank you very much. Why that? What have I done wrong? I'm a German.
No,
I'm
that's
supposed
not
to be nasty.
No, I don't believe that. I just don't believe it. That's not true. In fact, I was. My point was that I think, you know, maybe you were leaning that way. I don't even know if I should say this on here. I'm going to go ahead and say it. I thought that maybe that you were that nice because people hector Germans, and it's like, oh my goodness, Hitler. But you're not Hitler. Who knows? You don't even know anybody probably in what. So, but you know, Britt was like, no, I think he's just a really nice and he was the one who threw that word out there. And I agree. You're a genteel gentleman, man. You're really a good feller.
Thank you
about the
very
highest
much.
compliment I could give
don't know
somebody.
if I really earned that, but yeah, I take it. So, thank you very much.
Yeah, well, act like nothing happened. The Britishers used to it. It's just my, you know, I don't know. It's rare, especially in this cyber realm that we're in right now. There's no joke there. In the cyber realm we're in, it's not often. It's not every day that you run into somebody that's a genuinely just a cool person. I don't know how else to say it. I just thought genteel was, you know, was up your alley. You're all, you know, overly educated and whatnot, like probably the rest of us. I think of all the time I spent on education in my life, and it seems like such a waste now.
Well, if I can just cut in, because you put something in the side chat, and I've just looked up a link, might be of interest here, and that is regarding white poppies. Now, as I am not all too familiar with this story, so forgive me if I have to kind of try and do this on the run. So basically, it seems that there seems to be an alternative being suggested to the traditional red poppy. Now, I'm not familiar to what extent, you know, red poppies are a feature in America. I mean, over here, there is like a season, sort of late October, early November, in which you will just see poppies everywhere. You know, they're basically sold by on little stands. Very often there's veterans there or something like that. And All the money collected goes to some kind of veterans charity, and it all harks back to it being a symbol of all the losses in the First World War. And now it appears that suddenly somebody has decided that it would be more politically correct to come up with a white poppy. And I think everybody is struggling in a way to understand why that would be. I mean, the red poppy is in a way a symbol of peace. It has nothing to do with, glorifying warfare or any such thing.
No, when you donate to the Lions here, it's usually in the spring and fall. The firefighters come around with they're carrying fireman's boot, and you throw $1 or whatever, you throw some money in there, and they give you a little handmade paper red poppy. And I guess that's why I'm tying it into that.
That's exactly the same thing that is the case here. Yes.
Huh.
And the reason it became a symbol of the kind of calamity of the First World War was because
look, you know what? I'm not even gonna shit your breath. Sorry. Go ahead, Brett. I'm gonna show you this.
Poppies will tend to grow in sort of freshly tilled soil. And of course, with the First World War, the front lines, I mean, they were pretty much churned up completely with artillery fire. And therefore, once the war was over, once everybody left, the poppies took over the entire area between the trenches. And for quite some time, it was just a sea of red. All the red poppies just basically grew out of what was freshly tilled earth. And because it was such a unique phenomenon that no one had ever seen, the poppy became the symbol of all the losses in the First World War. And it has since remained a symbol for the losses of war. And it isn't really, it is in no way partisan. It belongs to no side. Now I think Weltschmerz will be able to confirm this. I don't think the poppy is really much of a symbol in the German-speaking world, is it?
No, absolutely not. No.
No.
First time I saw it was in England, actually. Yeah.
But as I say, when it comes to it being worn over here, it is not in any way worn as a kind of patriotic thing. It's not understood in that way at all. It refers far more to just the general losses of war, the people who lost their lives. Therefore, for someone to now come out and say, let's do it in white, because it's somehow more, it's somehow more appropriate. I'm a bit befuddled at that. I mean, I'm somehow getting the sense that some people may be outraged about it. I'm a bit too confused to even be outraged, because I'm not really sure what these people are seeking to achieve by taking a symbol of peace and trying to replace it with another symbol.
It's just trying to make something politically correct, which is already politically correct. So it's they overdo it, and that is it.
But I guess what they're doing by that is questioning the political correctness of the old symbol. And I think that's what may be annoying some people. I don't know. Because yes, I really don't. If there is one thing that irritates me with the poppy tradition in Britain, it is the insistence that so many people have that everybody should wear one. Because that's where I think it completely loses its power. So we will, for example, in past years, we have had people write into the BBC that so-and-so who was presenting such and such program wasn't wearing a poppy, and why not? And you just felt, well, okay, it's the season where normally you see a lot of people wearing poppies. But the moment it becomes an obligation, you're somewhat missing the point. And now you don't see a single man on you know, on the BBC during poppy season who doesn't have a poppy in his lapel. And the same thing for every male member of parliament. And you just feel, I'm sorry, but once it becomes a must, that's when it becomes ridiculous. That's when you've kind of missed the point, that it has to be a voluntary thing that people do and not a social obligation. Because
it's for me, I feel remembered of all these signs I don't like, from the Jewish star the people had to wear, or the swastika they were wearing on their arms, and whatever, and then it becomes like a similar symbol if I have to.
Yes,
you know what I'm saying?
Then it loses that. It loses that that symbolism. And of course, over here, we've had more controversy, and that is because it is such a, oh, everybody must wear these things, the controversy then spread to football, because the national football teams, so basically Northern Ireland, Wales, Scotland, and England, all wanted to wear them on their T-shirts. And FIFA said, no, it's just not, we don't do that. So then they went from that to wearing armbands with the poppies on. And once again, FIFA said, look, no, you can't do this. It's, you know, they basically said, look, we will simply not allow insignia. So you can't wear this. And the British were adamant. It was all over the tabloids. Everybody was, you know, proclaiming outrage. Even Theresa May, the Prime Minister.
This is like a kneeling while the anthem is playing kind of thing. It sounds like.
Well, yeah. It was just, it was sort of really a sort of a re-fest, you know. Oh, we can't wear our poppy, and you just went, well, hang on a moment. To me, that makes perfect sense, because if FIFA allows the wearing of the poppy, however much of a symbol of peace it is, then it's only a matter of time until, let's say, the Palestinians decide that there is some insignia they wish to wear, which to them only symbolizes goodness and peace, which perhaps, let's say, the Israelis might disagree with, and so on. And therefore, if you just make a blanket ban and say, no, I'm sorry, you can't do this, people. We perfectly understand that this is well-meaning, but, you know, this will lead to trouble in other parts of the world, so let's just not do it. And B, if it really is just about peace and togetherness and about the losses during war, why is this so important to you that you all must have it on your T-shirts? So that's where I can be at times quite critical of the Poppy Brigade. Because I think they take things too far at times. One can go too far with remembrance. But as such, yes, it's a perfectly harmless thing, if done in moderation. And I don't understand why one would suddenly need a white poppy. It just, yeah, that just seems strange.
And you know what, gentlemen, we did an hour, and I want to show a little respect to the Britisher for the wonderful show Mappy compiled earlier today. So why don't we jump into the news, Britt? Unless there's anything that someone else has to say to like cap off what we've been talking about. I think I might jump into the believe was the first story the Michael. No, it wasn't Michael Gove. That was the first story was Saudi Arabia to allow women, right?
Yes.
Just so I know where I'm at. So
the list was the first one on the list was Saudi Arabia to allow women in sports stadia.
So why don't we do this, gentlemen? Since my number one criticism, and people, you know, I don't know if look, Brett, I love criticism, and it's nice when someone says, you know, you do a great job and this and that. But to be honest, I even tweeted it. You probably seen it. You just didn't like it. You don't usually. You're so non-controversial, Brett. But anyway, it's nice, believe it or not, once in a while when people point out your shortcomings, no matter how snarky or trollish or whatever they might be. There, in every lie, there's an element of truth, and in every troll, no matter how horrible it might sound, or in the case of the one that I just got on your channel, Britt, it wasn't like even horrible. It was just somebody was just saying, hey, So what? This is what I want to do. Make a long story short, because what I'm doing is what they said they didn't like. It's just gonna go on talking for like 15 minutes about basically nothing, right? So I'm going to try to cut down on that. And thank you, anybody listening now, anybody that cuts in later when we're not live. Hey, look, if they're, we all, even the Britisher, he's not going to admit it on air, but we all want to know where our shortcomings are. So look, let's do this, boys. I will read the news, and then Britt, you will play the part of myself and yourself. You know my opinion is good enough. Just play devil's advocate once in a while. And Welsh Schmertz, you play yourself. And we'll have a little commentary on what the Brits drudged up for us here. Let me see if I can pop on this here. Sound good, boys?
Well, I'm not sure whether we need to, read it at length, to be honest.
No. I'm just going to, what I mean read it is, I will say something to this effect. Saudi Arabia to allow women into sports stadiums from next year, starting next year. And then I might mention something like, oh, well, they already have Australian women sometimes, that they let in. What a wonderful boon for feminism. And then like pass it off to you. Something like that. That's what I mean by reading. Not like read the freaking article. I'm not going to read the article though.
Well, when it comes to this story, it's an interesting one, obviously, because it follows on from the allowing women to drive. Now, when it comes to allowing women to drive, that was all a bit of a smokescreen story, because we all know that is basically an austerity program going on in Saudi Arabia. They realize that their financial situation is changing rather dramatically. I mean, when you hear announcements being made in Britain and in France that by such and such a year they will stop the sale of new diesel and petrol cars, you realize that the world is a-changing. And I mean, the Saudi Arabians, they can clearly not, this cannot be news to them. We also know that Prince bin Salman is he is effectively the man who's in charge of a lot of Saudi Arabia at the moment, and he has got this great vision of trying to turn Saudi Arabia into some sort of Dubai or Qatar.
Wasn't there something funny, Brett, before you continue, about that gentleman, about how he came to be prince?
No, this.
So am I thinking about the wrong one? Because there's just a guy that's like been appointed where the son of the king. I thought that was Saudi Arabia. So I'm thinking of
he's the son of the king. Yes.
Right. Well, that's not usual. They usually appoint the uncle, the brother, or
yes. I mean, normally cousin. It's a kind of seniority thing.
That's what I mean. So this is the guy. This is the guy we're talking about. It can
usually be a cousin or something like that. So that's, but as such, he is not yet kind of crown prince. One thinks that he is being groomed to eventually succeed his father, which is very unusual. So it is highly unusual for someone like that to have such a prominent position. One knows that it could all come crashing down, because one knows that he is the person who is very much behind the war in Yemen and things like that. So that could very much backfire on him. But he is also in charge of sort of overall, the economic plan, in particular also the privatization of the oil reserves, because that is basically being turned into a giant stock company. But what they basically are trying to do, their great vision for the nation, is to try and kind of emulate what has happened in the Gulf states. When you're looking at Bahrain, Qatar, the Emirates. The problem, of course, is, and this is what everybody is pointing out with Saudi Arabia, is that Saudi Arabia is a much bigger country, so it's much harder to do than with one of those sort of tiny little nations with hardly any population. But one of the biggest thing holding Saudi Arabia back is their, very antiquated society. It is the fact that women have absolutely no rights. It is the fact that they are very hard line and they regularly chop people's heads off. So very difficult to try and advertise this as a place for international investment, when at the same time, you know, one of your expats might have an arm chopped off or a head chopped off in some kind of ridiculous punitive measure. So it's clear that they have to somehow try and loosen things up a bit. So when you hear that now suddenly women ought to be permitted to go and watch sports events, you get the feeling that bin Salman is more than likely behind it. That he is the one who is trying to kind of say, look, we'll try and introduce some kind of symbolic measures to show that we are modernizing. But, I mean, on the other hand side, it's of course also rather interesting that the women will be allowed in the family section, which I think has to be kind of seen in the light that the Saudi authorities more than likely don't think they would be safe in the other sections. And I mean, call me overly cynical, but anybody who has ever heard about this Taharush phenomenon,
Yes,
will more than likely
rape.
realize that introducing a few odd women into a huge mass of men in the Arabian world might not be very safe.
Yeah, the Taharush is a rape game they play, for those of you that don't know.
That's why one may be interested in introducing them into the family sections, and chances are there will be, you know, much, much tighter security in those areas.
Stories must have something to say before I butt in.
Yeah, I more or less agree with the Brit. In my opinion,
yeah, don't just kiss his ass. Tell us what you think.
No, it's economy based. I mean, it's not that they all of a sudden think like, oh, we have to treat women differently. They are coming to realize that their oil reserves are coming to an end, and they have to create some kind of new economy there. But if you treat women like shit, then no Western company wants to go there. Yeah, because if you have the option to work in Saudi Arabia, then it is very likely that your woman will tell you, no, I will not go there. I have no rights there. I live like a prisoner in my home. That's the last country on earth where I want to be. So they have to change. I don't think it will be very successful because, in my opinion, they have nothing to offer. The climate conditions are horrible anyway, and nobody wants to live there. For me, it is kind of a desperate try to swing the economy into a different direction. But well, yeah, I agree with the Brit. So that is.
Yeah, and I hope you know I sometimes I say stuff before I think about what I'm saying. I might have put that too. It's stupid trying to make a joke. You know what? I will die by this though and say that it don't matter if you're trying to be funny and you know in your heart that's what you're trying to be. You no matter how difficult the situation is, rape joke, a death joke, you know, hurricane joke, whatever, jokes of the president or prime minister or queen. Well, you know what? Kiss my butt, man, and every other person that's just tried to be funny, because there's nothing sacred in this world. I believe that the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob would agree with me, Britisher. Nothing sacred in this world when it comes to comedy. Surely God in heaven loves the jester just like the king on earth does, right?
Well, was that one of the great segue moments that we've just witnessed there? Because I'm wondering whether you might be, by any chance, driving us towards the Michael Gove story, Mr. Ogre.
It would not be bad. I actually have it up right here, Brett. I had that ready. Funny that you mentioned that. And because why? Because look at this guy.
Yes, just looking at that gentleman, you can see that. I mean, he's a real looker. I mean, Hollywood awaits, no doubt. You know, in order to perhaps sort of explain sort of the background to Michael Gove, Michael Gove is a British politician. He's a member of the cabinet at the moment. He also perhaps is best known for shortly before you know, the election, the elevation of Theresa May to become the leader, most people would have thought it would be Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson seemed to be working together with Michael Gove. They seemed to be a double act. And at the very last moment, about 24 hours before Boris Johnson was going to declare his leadership bid, Michael Gove, whom everybody knew to be working with him, came out and made his own statement in which he said he thought Boris Johnson was unsuitable to be prime minister, and that he was declaring his own leadership bid.
Hey, Brett, can I crack the joke that he cracked? Can I crack the joke? I mean, it's funny. Well, you know this is funny.
As I say, that's the background.
Can you believe this joke came from this guy?
That is how we know Michael Gove. And Michael Gove made a joke. And no doubt the ogre is dying to tell us this joke.
Well, Brett, can we first agree? Okay, before I have a heart attack here, can we first agree that this guy don't look like the lad that would crack this particular joke, right?
So no, I too was rather surprised to hear it coming from him. Yeah.
Yeah. So even just based on that, we have to give him at least a half a point, a comedic point based on his face. Okay.
Yes.
So what he said is that, okay, let me see if I can do this. Now that this has been agreed, I can. Says Environmental Secretary Michael Gove has apologized after making a clumsy on-air joke referring to disgraced movie mogul Harvey Weinstein. Okay, here we go. Mr. Gove, I even started further back than I needed to so I could compose myself, and this is pretty funny. He said, Mr. Gove faced a furious backlash on social media after suggesting being interviewed by BBC Radio 4 presenter John Humphreys was like going into Harvey Weinstein's bedroom.
Well, as I say, it was well done. It was well delivered. He clearly seems to be a more witty man than most people give him credit for.
Yes.
When he actually said that, it caused laughter all round. Everybody laughed. Everybody found it funny. Then came the outrage.
Outrage.
Because Harvey Weinstein, whatever. Suddenly everything went ballistic on Twitter. And now this is where Michael Gove is Michael Gove. Because even when he gets something right, he will still screw it up.
Yeah.
So here he has actually got something right. And if you've got a sense of humor with the British, you're already halfway there.
You got the 9 yards is already, yeah, you're there. You're at the goalpost.
But if you make a joke and people actually find it funny, and then you end up apologizing for it, because there are some people who are outraged on Twitter. And we know that these are the professionally outraged. If you then apologize for it, well, then any possible gains that you have made with the population who suddenly say, oh, he seems to have a sense of humor after all.
Yeah.
That suddenly goes all out the window.
It's actually more powerful against you at that point than it was for you.
It does you more damage than it does you good. And I just when I heard this story, I just thought, I'm sorry, but what on earth has got into the man? Is he? I mean, he's British, for heaven's sake. Surely he should know that about us. So yes, it was one of those stories where you just ended up cringing at the idea that here is this obsequious creature trying to say, oh no, I really didn't mean any harm, and you just thought it was a joke. No joke has really ever done any harm. What on earth are you apologizing for? But I'm afraid this is the day and age we live in, and yes, I think if it is possible to actually think of Gove's stock having being able to drop, it definitely most certainly has dropped. I mean, given that he already had a reputation for stabbing Boris Johnson in the back, and now I think he is well and truly dead.
Oh, I'm still presenting. I just realized it's still presenting myself. In some ways, that was good. So I could even I could pop it off to Welshmerits, but I've got so many good stories right here. You know what I'm going to do, boys? I'm going to let the
Brit have next one.
Yeah, I'm going to have the Brit had the last word on that. So I'm going to pop off with this one. Welshmerits, this goes right to you first. So apparently from the Independent, again, look, anybody that says Britishers are prude with a stick jammed up his hind end, well, look, kiss both our butts, because he's the one that came up with these. Some of these are just really excellent stories. So this is from the Independent. Former Russian troll farm employee says Hillary Clinton body double was hired to make a sex tape. And then they, so I think, again, we don't have to read the whole story, but here you go again, boys. I heard one person comment on this. I think it was Steven Crowder, or it might have even been Rush Limbaugh, if you can believe it. I hate to admit I listen to him sometimes, but that said, "Oh Lord, I hope I don't have to see this." But Welshmerits, what do you think about this? What did even, let's say, just so I can play devil's advocate before I pop it off to you boys, starting with you, Welshmerits. I mean, say if it was really Hillary Clinton. I mean, is that anybody?
The first thing I want to say is I'm really proud of the Russians, that they slowly start to understand how this whole media business works and how this whole propaganda game in the West works. And yeah, it's hilarious. I mean, definitely I don't want to see a sex tape of Hillary, but yeah, it starts, for me, it looks like they're making a good job there. And what else can I say? I mean, I like the work of RT, and yeah, they are slowly connecting with our Western media and then try to get more attention. And in my opinion, that's a good thing. I mean, I don't trust them more than I would trust our media. Yeah, that is not the point, but at least we have a different perspective. And yeah, for me, that's hilarious. I mean, hopefully they continue, and hopefully we can see the Trump PP tapes somewhere soon as well. I would totally enjoy it.
Well, Brit, if you got something small on this, hammer it on me, because I got this next story is going right to you, sir.
When it comes to this story, one always has to take this with a pinch of salt, because we have no way of knowing whether this person who claims to be a former Russian troll, whether this is actually real. But if it is real, then exactly as Welshmerits said, then it is a sign of the fact that the Russians have realized that the one thing that can down any politician is something sexual. That basically, if you introduce an element of sex into it, it can destroy any politician from a mile's distance.
Yeah, that's for sure. In fact, that leads right into this. Since you're talking about it, might as well let you continue to talk about it. We're going to interject a little sex into this, because we're constantly told, Britisher, that gender is it can't be forced upon someone at birth. You know, that gender can be like, there was like 68. I remember hearing Milo Stewart say there was probably millions of gender. And it was like, oh my goodness. So apparently gay men are about to receive a apology from the Scottish government. It says the First Minister is to apologize on behalf of the Scottish government to gay men convicted of now abolished sex offenses. And I don't think all I can do before I kick it off to you is say the beginning words after the opener there is Nicola Sturgeon, the fish lady. Britt, you must have an opinion on this.
When it comes to this, I am absolutely and completely against this. Now, that of course makes me, it's easy to paint me as a bigot when I say that. It has already happened in England and Wales, and I was absolutely and completely against that also. The reason I am against it is because it is so hypocritical. It is crawling to one particular political lobby, and it just basically, it makes my skin crawl. Because think of all the other people who have been found guilty of offences
Yeah.
which since have changed.
Murderers, rape, all of them, everybody,
Well, no,
right?
no, I mean, murder has always been illegal.
Oh, I thought you meant
Murder
people
will
that might
always
have been
be.
convicted, but they found they were innocent. But continue.
Oh, no. The reason one is apologizing to these people is because it is deemed that having had laws against homosexuality was wrong.
Okay.
So now, given that one now no longer has that, one wishes, it's not sufficient just to purge their criminal records or whatever. Oh, no, we apologize for having, that this was ever done. And you
Is
just
there
think,
an example of another law that there was? I'm sure there is, Britt, to help me think of one that
Well,
there.
I mean, just think of things like blasphemy or
Okay, thank you.
censorship.
No, blasphemy is perfect. So in other words, 500 years ago, where you stand, if you said this, all I said was this halibut was good enough for Jehovah. Hope everybody got that reference. You could be stoned. But now it's like you can say, well, this halibut's good enough for Jehovah, and it's no big deal. And nobody is offering anybody an apology for that. I'm sorry,
Yes,
sir. So
exactly. Nobody is offering any apologies.
That's actually even more powerful than what I was thinking.
People who have been found guilty of crimes which we now no longer prosecute. The only people who are getting this apology are the gays. And I just do not understand why they ought to be singled out, whereas everybody else stays the same. So that is where, just on the point of principle, I am just dead against it. At the same time, of course, here is little Miss Sturgeon once again showing how kindly and understanding and liberal-minded she is. Because the entire gay issue has time and time again been used as a fig leaf for governments to be ever less liberal, ever more authoritarian, to reduce liberties across the board, but at the same time then always put themselves forward and show, oh, look what we're doing for the gays, look how liberal we are. It has provided a fig leaf for them to appear liberal outwardly, as though they were still part of the Western liberal tradition, while at the same time they're actively dismantling that whole thing. So for Nicola Sturgeon to stand there and cloak herself in the mantle of liberalism, while at the same time Count Dankula is being prosecuted for a joke.
Man.
That's where I feel, I'm sorry, people, but that's where it's no longer funny.
Nice point.
This is really, really disgusting. As I say, it's nothing to do with whether you are for or against gays or anything like that. It's just out and out hypocrisy of the highest order coming from Nicola Sturgeon.
Damn sure is, man. And I'm going to give, because I got like two more, Britt. I don't want to cut you off if you're not done. Go ahead.
No, I'm done.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I want to give him a chance, and then we've got two other stories, and then I'm going to kind of press you boys as long as I can.
Can I add my 5 cents to it?
Yeah, please. That's what I'm saying. Yes.
What I don't understand with this whole apology thing is, I mean, it was not her. She did nothing wrong. I mean, the law was in place way before her, way before she was born. And I think it makes no sense to apologize for something that you have not done. Yeah, it's like, apologize. Yes, for me, in my case, as a German, apologize for the war crimes. What the fuck? I was not born then.
Why would you?
You know what I say? I mean, it's not on me to apologize. And the people who has to apologize, they are long dead.
They're dead. Yeah,
so the whole thing is completely pointless. It is good that the law has changed. It is good that the whole situation has changed, but it's not on us, on our generation, to apologize for something we have not done.
Daggone right.
We are not responsible for that. So yeah, what the fuck?
No, I agree with you completely when it comes to the war. When it comes to Haino, that's a different matter. The entire German nation should still have to apologize for that.
That went over my head. That went over my head. What?
I'm willing to do that.
Now you got to explain the joke because it went over my head.
I know it's a German singer, and when you hear him, then you know why I have to apologize.
Oh, is it the Odell? It's the guy that? Oh, okay, never mind. I might not be thinking about the same. Is it the meme? Is it the famous meme? It's like German yodeling.
No, Heino is definitely not yodeling. No, okay. But it's yes, it's just one of those crimes against humanity that the Germans inflicted on us in terms of music. Yes,
it was my grandma's favorite singer. So
well, I was trying to explain to Mrs. Ogre last night about how the Germans have no sense of humor, and it actually bled over into the stream that we did, and how it's like they almost. Germans, it seems like maybe from the cradle, from their mother's knee and their father's comforting arm, they're told, now Heinz, you must put everything you have into work. That's probably more Russian. I can't do the voice. And it's like, that's all they care about. It's like they make a clock. It seems to me like they are the more efficient and more technical version of Japanese people. There you go. And you know what, Velchmir, you turned me on to the races, man. Funny thing is those little 138 or whatever it was, the little tiny cars, the ones that are. Everybody there was Japanese or German. There was like a couple Chinese, I think, but everybody there was either like yellow, what we call yellow people, or German. So that says something. That kind of bolsters my point. And boys, that was just stupid. That wasn't even a segue. Any last words on our last topic? I'm going to just roll it onto there. I hate all the race stuff. I miss the days when we could just joke and, you're running on island time and yeah, white boy, you can't dance. All this good stuff. You know what I mean? All this fun stuff that it's like they do everybody now because of slavery or whatever. They do everybody like the Germans with World War II.
No, and the thing is, Olga, that in my opinion, I mean, everybody on the whole planet is racist.
Yep. Well, we gotta be. We have to be to a certain extent.
Yeah, and that's normal because, I mean, we are educated by our society, and every society does things differently. So that is not a bad thing. So the question is how you deal with it. I mean, if you think that you doing something exceptionally well, that is not like devaluating somebody else. If you don't think, you know what I'm saying? I mean, there can be a positive way of racism. When I'm a black guy and I say I dance better than you, or when I don't know.
Of course, you're the best dancer on the world, but what I'll say is people want to superimpose on you stories. But the fact of the matter is they think it's hindsight. Now by they, I mean some folks that seem to act like Germans have this responsibility like white people have, you know what I mean? This idea that you have to pay for the sins of your fathers. They're not taking the time to realize that no, it's not just hindsight. If I can vouch for you right now from what I know of you stories, if you were there back then and they were like final solution, you'd be like, oh my God. You know what I mean? It's not, I don't care if you had a swastika and you would, if when that come to that and you would have thought you'd been like, oh my Lord, have mercy. I didn't know I signed up for this. And that is the vast, overwhelming majority. It just goes back to the fact that Germans do things very well. So when it came time to do war and they had a crazy person at the helm, whatever you want to call it or attribute it to, it doesn't matter. What it comes down to it is when it comes time for them to go to war, all you got to do is like, I mean, the Hessians, Brit, where do they come from? Aren't they Prussian? Aren't they German? Everybody, it's like the greatest warriors that we've known in the last 400 or 500 years. Anyway, there you go. That was my apology for, no, come on, give it up. You can't blame generations for what the past has done. Otherwise, we'd all be guilty of something, wouldn't we? All of us.
We don't have to pay reparations.
For something. Because I hear all this, but I mean, Jews were slaves. They built the pyramids. So, I mean, every time I hear like black people talking about reparations in the United States, it's like, okay, what we'll do is we'll just say you owe me $1,000 a piece. Instead of, you know, because whatever, we'll take it off of what you owe us. But it doesn't, nobody, I don't know any Jews that do that, that are like, in fact, the one thing I do know about is that Egypt came out and said, because of the Exodus, shit you're not, check it out, and the gold earring, the gold that the Jews took, that they actually owed that back to Egypt in some strange way. I was like, holy shit, what? That was actually pay for the slave-built pyramids, you know what I mean? So there you go. So anyway, but I think that is the only a weak person would cry, give me pay for what has been done before I was born. Hopefully we could all agree on that. I got another story here, boys. I hear a lot of silence. I don't know if it's because what I just was saying was, it may have been controversial. That's why, I mean, it's when I hear all the dead air, I was like, man, what I said, was it just horribly controversial? But I'll let it hang there. If it was, I'm sure y'all tell me later. I see this story, and before Common Senseguy, before he leaves, if he's still out here, I wanted to bring this up. Extremist and returning jihadist offered council house bribes to reintegrate. And Britt, I don't know if I need to read much more than that. Is this now the people that they're talking about? Are they like you, Common Senseguy, going over there and coming back, or is it like Ahmed Ahmadinejad that was first generation here and was raised completely Muslim, and in all reality is probably more loyal to that than you know, Britannia?
Except for a tiny number of converts,
right?
It tends to be you know, descendants of you know, traditional Muslim families. Yes.
Oh, give us a lowdown. I was out of CO2, man.
Well,
so
when it comes to this story, I mean, it's no wonder that the tabloids have jumped on this and said, look, are you absolutely serious? Now, we don't know for certain yet that this is going to happen. This seems to be something that is being talked about in the corridors of power, because there is obviously great concern that ISIS is effectively in free fall. It's collapsing. We know that war is pretty much over. I mean, that's why the Iraqis are now going at the Kurds, because they can afford to now, because the threat of ISIS is pretty much crumbling. But that, of course, means that those international fighters who were part of the whole caliphate out there, they, you know, they're running out of room, and sooner or later, quite a few of them are, you know, going to be heading home. That I think is already the belief that something like 400 have returned. So, what to do with these people? And I don't think this is only about the ISIS fighters, but that is more than likely what has kicked this off. So it may be also a matter of talking about extremists in general, how to deal with them. Because if you lock some of these people up for, you know, 5-10 years, at some point they're going to come out. What do you do with them then?
Well, and I don't want anybody busting you on the numbers, Britt, so you were very close. I think it says that 350 are thought to have returned, and that they're preparing for 850 that have thought to have went there. And here's a little map, folks, as he continues, that shows you the locations that they would return to.
But I think what they're doing is effectively, I mean, as I say, they're not doing this yet for certain. This is something that's under consideration.
Yes.
I think where they're taking their lead from is oddly Saudi Arabia. Because Saudi Arabia, of course, has had its fair number of extremists that have been involved in various things around the world. And this came as a bit of a surprise, I think, to many, that when these people came back to Saudi Arabia, they were sort of treated with kid gloves.
And why?
That one thought to sort of, you know, make sure they had housing, make sure they had an income, you know, and the aim was basically, look, if we integrate these people, then they're actually less likely to kick off. Whereas if we keep them homeless and unemployed, then we more than likely we set them on a path to destruction.
And yet, how many acid attacks, Brett? I don't want to get too far from the weeds or throw you too many curveballs, but how many acid attacks? I mean, is this?
I have no idea what the number of acid attacks is. But the number of acid attacks in Britain is not actually related to Asian people specifically.
True. Okay. Carry on. I'm sorry. I just wanted to.
But when it comes to this, it seems to be that seems to be their thinking. I am not sure whether the British public is going to swallow this, to be honest. There is a housing crisis in Great Britain due to the fact that we've had sustained high numbers of immigration over a long period of time. We're talking 1 or 2 decades here.
No, you people are very generous, very open-armed.
At the same time, there just has not been enough house building during that time. So there is just not enough housing. There is, particularly due to certain policies, a distinct shortage in public housing that one can offer people, if you know what I mean. So if someone's in trouble and needs a roof over their head, it's very difficult to find them a kind of, a flat that one can just, that isn't in private hands. So therefore, when they're talking about council house queues in those articles, what they mean is that there are, thousands and thousands of people on lists in which they're effectively kept in a queue for should any public housing become available, that they are basically the first on the list. Now,
well, those people should be first then.
Yes, but you can imagine these can be, perhaps a battered wife with children who's had to leave her abusive husband.
Right.
And you now have to find her somewhere to stay. So someone like that would be high up on the list of priorities for something like that.
One would hope.
So when you then hear that these people might jump the housing queue and turn up top of the queue to be the first people to get a property made available to them at no cost, that's when you sort of think, well, I understand your thinking. You're effectively trying to incentivize them to be peaceable. But at the same time, you are effectively rewarding them for being violent nutters. So I really don't quite see how the British public is supposed to wear this. Now, this is a situation where you sort of think, well, where exactly are the solutions? And they're difficult to find. But yes, I think this is more than likely a step too far. And I think now that the governments have told the people about it, I cannot see how the government could go ahead with this.
I don't really get it. Are we talking about British people who are Muslims, or are we talking about people from other countries immigrating into Britain?
We're talking British people who would be Muslims who are returning to Britain.
Okay,
but but it's a slippery slope on that, gentlemen. And it's hard for me to say this because British is British, American's American, but I'm still going to say it. I'm going to guess that most of the people that this entails is going to have a name like Ahmed Ahmadinejad or Mohammed Salah Alaikum Ashimanam or whatever. It's going to be these, and maybe they're second generation. What I would say is we all need to remember that when we didn't assimilate here with the Native Americans, there is a casino not too far from here that way and that way. Actually, I can get to one, probably about 30 minutes. I can get to the other one about 28 minutes. About the same. And they say that the Chippewa and I can't even remember what they're called up there, the Saguening tribes. But no, come on, man. It's a joke. Oh, Britt, I wanted to ask you something real quick, if I may. It just came to mind, and this is riveting. Don't get me wrong, but this stuff, who the hell is this?
Haino.
Okay, so why I missed that? I usually get your.
Haino. So that is the inverted commas pop star who basically scored considerable success in Germany and polluted the airwaves for years.
Lord have mercy! Look at that hair.
It
makes me glad I'm bald.
He's an albino. That's why he's wearing these sunglasses all the time.
Look at those teeth. I don't know, man. It just makes me glad I'm bald and I don't have a giant gap in my teeth. So that's the guy. I saw that I missed that. I popped that picture up. I never know what you're going to send me, obviously, but it's usually, I don't know if it's a picture, it's a castle or something we're talking about. I popped this up and I was like, good God have mercy. What's that?
Yes, that's what I thought the first time I saw, and particularly the first time I ever heard Heino.
You got to send me some audio that I can listen to later. Obviously, I can't do it at the moment, but that's just funny. Oh, look, what did I do? I just cut out one of the stories. And it was the one I wanted to talk about next. How in the hell am I going to get back to that, man? I had like 10 of them open. I had them knocking down one at a time, Brett. And then I had a great one. By the way, the last one, I just want to encourage everybody, the Common Senseguy. Sorry, you just sent me something, Common Senseguy. I tried to pop it up and said the page doesn't exist on Twitter, but he just did a little thing called "No Room in the End," and I am going to find that right now. If I have to go back and look in my history and send it out in the chat, I suggest you listen to it. Everybody has. All I'm going to say is I enjoy listening to the Common Senseguy when I'm out working on my outside stuff, man. And he does have some pretty good opinions. And keep at it, Common Sense. Keep the good production coming, and try to improve it every chance you get. I'm just biding time right now, boys. I'm filibustering because I'm looking back trying to find.
The only thing I think I can say about the Common Senseguy is that if there's anything the man should do or should stop doing, is to be so mercilessly bullying Coach Red Pill. I mean, this poor man, you know, who's never done anybody any harm, upon whom the Common Senseguy is just constantly picking. It's it's just unconscionable. I think he should be more British about it. You know, fair play.
Oh, to be more British. That's actually assuming that he's not being very British about something. I have to say this.
I'm in trouble next time he's on.
No, you're fine. No, it's funny. You lot, man. I tell you, you lads. To me. I don't, because I'm not British. When you two get after you,
if I just may interrupt you, just to read out the Common Senseguy's latest missive in the tweet, in the chat, and that is, "I will have his blood."
Yeah, we can see that right here. I'm looking at that. It's funny. Well, we'll see. I will say this: it's tough for a Yank when because I listen to you all and I give you hell, Brett. You're pretty close to me, and you give me hell sometimes. But there's British people have a way, and when y'all like going on about Catalonia and stuff, man, it's something. It's good. It's good times. Maybe we'll even talk about Catalonia. I don't even know. I wanted this damn story. Now I'm going to put my whole focus in, just because I miss the Common Senseguy. I'm not even going to lie now, Brett. We're getting on. What is it? We started at 4 or 5, 6. I'm going to try to go for 3 probably today, Brett, if it's all right with you. If not, I will wrap it up whenever you want. Just give me the old 15-minute dinger, Brett, when you're ready, if you got to go. That way we can still let everybody just have their wrap up and get out. Okay. And I've been working on that too, man. And that being said, it'll either be that or a quarter till the top of the hour, because I'm not going 3 hours. There's a sweet spot for us, and I wish that the algorithms and that all the powers that be that are the gods of YouTube would smile down on us, but they don't. They don't like us. But there's still things we can do. I believe with my heart and with my logic, more to the point, Britisher, that while I look for this next story, I want to see what you think about this, that we still should try to, I don't think that it's futile. You know what I mean? I don't believe, some people are starting to act like, well, YouTube don't like us, so why even try? I've never put tags on my videos. I did for like the first 15, 20 videos that I put up that were not live streams. They were just theatrical on my part. I put some tags after the first 15, 20 on them. After that, I figured it would be in what I was saying, title, and that's it. A little field, something in the field, and that's it. We fighting something that there's no you give it up on YouTube, by the way. I'm going to put that in. So if this is a bug in your ear, or should we just keep on? Should we continue on? Because this is a wonderful platform. Where else can we get together? On my channel, not the Britisher's big giant freaking media empire that he's built, where we get triple digits watching us, man. It's like
Britisher, the media mogul.
Yeah, the module. He's the module.
I've honestly never really thought of myself in that vein, but
I haven't either. I was just busting your balls. I
shall obviously have to find some attractive young actresses I can call to the bathroom to give me a massage.
Scorche. You gotta have
but honestly, I mean, I wrote you a message.
We had one. She ran away. What am I thinking? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I wrote you a message a few days ago how to start a live chat and stuff, like yesterday. And I was really thinking maybe he gets so many messages that he will not even see it.
Oh, no,
I have no clue, but because it is
me. No, I'm nowhere near that. There are some where you just basically, I mean, Sargon, it must be almost impossible for him to keep track of anything. Because when I was on his live stream, I just saw the chat whiz by and you couldn't read anything.
But you also have like sometimes like 400 comments on one of your videos on YouTube.
Yes, I do get a lot of comments on the videos. But I do seem to get a higher proportion of comments on the videos per viewer, so to speak. So than most other channels do. So my comment section seems to be a bit hyperactive, which I quite like. I love just scrolling through it and reading what people have to say.
I've seen that you've kind of got a handle on the. I have noticed one thing, Britisher. I've got to give you credit for you've evolved in this way. You used to be almost religious in your answering of Tamnir. I mean, if it was even had any credence, you would answer it. I mean, any. If it was an obvious troll, you'd leave it alone. If it was a terrible thing, you might even comment on there and be like, don't be a jerk. And now I've seen that, yeah, I'm sure you still read everyone, but you seem to have gotten it down to where you don't, I don't know how else to say it, mate. You don't burden yourself with it.
I would actually love to respond to much more,
It's impossible.
I would like to do what I did earlier on, that I would be much more interactive and respond to much more of them. Yeah. But it's just not possible. There's
because then we can forget about the week that was. I mean, you can either have the responses or you can
not the time. And I will pretty much see all of them, but I can't respond to all of them because it's just beyond the possible. So once in a while, something will just prick me, and I'll just go, oh yeah, that's funny, and then I'll do a response to it or something like that. But the days in which I will actually have lengthy replies to someone, and then perhaps even when they come back to me respond again, that's pretty much over, simply just due to the volume of it. I can't handle that anymore, I'm afraid. I would have to be like Phil DeFranco or Stephen Crowder and get myself a team so that I have people.
Well, they don't answer shit anyway. We were trying our best today, and that's what I meant too, Britt. I want to be very clear. I think I don't know if I said this before. I want to be very clear. What I meant by that was a great troll. If that don't get him, nothing else will. I didn't mean that like that troll stopped us from ever. No, what I meant is that was so good. I don't know if there's anything else we could do in the future that would be better, that would ever get the guy. He don't say nothing, Lionel, nothing. I've never seen him respond on Twitter. Have you ever seen him respond to somebody ever?
No, I've never seen him respond to someone.
Never.
And I just sort of thought, well, if we kind of try it in a joking fashion, we might be able to lure him out.
Nothing. The guy is just
yeah. It didn't happen. I mean, who knows? Perhaps on another day. But once in a while, it's just worth kind of trying and being a bit humorous and seeing.
Well, what we got to do, Brett, is that I'm just gonna continue to do this. Send you a message on Twitter when he's live streaming, just to double check to see if and we should double team him because you got Bread Moth there that's often in your chat. He's kind of a dick, but he's all right. I mean, I'll give him the pass. But well, let me put it this way. He's the zero cool of chat. You know what I mean? It's like you can almost hear him yelling at you.
There is such a thing?
Yeah, he's yeah, he's the zero cool of chat. Although I almost feel like I'm taking away from zero cool, because as boisterous and as braggadocious as he is online, in person like this, he's that much on chat also. So I guess there's two zero cools, the original, and we'll call him 0.20.
Talking about, given that I just chuckled there before, did you, you no doubt will have, if you watch the week that was, you will have realized that I was quite open about my, how shall we say, loss of composure in a particular live stream
a few
days ago.
Yeah.
The corpse moment. Yes.
The brown pop.
There's still a gentleman called Moz who is insisting that the ogre be true to his word and do some editing. I somehow feel I will never live this moment down. But
well,
yes.
You mean earlier today? Because people are. I got pieces. Look, I have the Britisher saying the F word, the N word. I've got him saying everything. But what would be the sense? This is the problem that I have. If I was going to even make a funny thing, Brett, with like the Britisher, and I've got it partly made, where you're like saying something astute, and then it was like, and you say this word, that word. But here's the facts. I'm not going to do it. Why? Brett, have you said anything to me about this? I don't even tell you, because I don't look. I'm not even going to go there. I don't ask anybody anything. I do think of consequences though, and some folks. I mean, I don't want people. If someone else wants to take it and make it derogatory against my co-host, then they can go and do the work to get all those words together. But I have made a decision, and I'm not going to provide someone with a 2-minute. There you go.
The answer to that is always context.
Right.
So I have indeed used certain words, but that was when we were talking about the use of those said words.
Right.
Therefore, I am not one of the persons who will kind of try and talk around them, because I just find that I just find that pathetic. Because then one is being afraid of words, and
but as funny as it would
be prepared to do that.
And as funny as it would be for me, Britt, and for some of our friends here, I think you know what I mean. It's not because of what you just said. If someone wants to go take those, and for anybody else that wants to hear them, hey, just watch the stream every day. I guarantee you that there'll be a time where these things will come up again. I'm not going to gratuitously ask my co-host to just be like, hey, give him some cuss words. I mean, I already asked him to do gratuitous things as it is, like read out when people do, whatever. I do ask him to do enough. And so that is not going to be one of them. Oh, look, man, I think I got like 1 or 2 more stories, boys. And then, I don't know, man. Let's say good night. It's been a big day for me. Doing cedar shake siding. And maybe I'll tell you all how to do it if you care to, but it's boring. But it's a lot of pieces ranging from about 4.5 inches to about maybe 18 inches of cedar shake by about 18 inches. And then just strike a line. Black paper, strike a line 7 inches up, lay the shit 1 row, strike a line 7 inches up because there's 7-inch reveal, lay the next row, strike a line. So I'm just putting siding on, but one little shingle at a time. It's cedar. And the end result looks beautiful, but I think the only thing that I know that I can do that is more time consuming and physical is stone. If I was to put, lath on the outside and then cover it with stucco and then lay stone up attached to a concrete wall, which I can also do, but I don't have the stone around here. Well, what were we talking about? I'm desperate looking, Brett. You made the show map, man, and I don't want to put too much pressure on your shoulders, but what would we missing? I've got this BIM Aftola
BIM Ofalami, yes, and we've got Theresa May, and then we've got a Bristol Company's Upstyle Challenge.
Yeah, and there was the balloon. Okay.
Yes, that's the one that was the last one. Yes.
So any order you want. Those are the 2 I was missing. I've got the BIM.
BIM Afalami, Theresa May, and the balloons.
Yeah, so I got this one right here. This Tory MP claims that Labour members are trying to harass his family. And then you see this very handsome-looking dark gentleman. It says, Labour has said it takes all complaints of harassment seriously following allegations of a Conservative member of Parliament. And Brett, I don't want to read too much of this. Do you want me to read a couple of these tweets?
Well, I mean, the reason I thought, I mean, again, we always need to take things with a pinch of salt because you never know whether they're true or not. But to me, this had echoes of the very story I alluded to earlier regarding Jordan Peterson, where they were posting things up around his neighborhood about what a terrible person he is. And here, lo and behold, we have once again what appear to be some left-wing militants trying to find out where his kids go to school. You know, and you just sort of feel, well, I'm sorry, but it just appears that one side at the moment is just so militant, it is so consumed with its own zeal, that they just don't seem to understand that there are certain rules by which you ought to play, and certain things which you simply don't do in a civil society. And I mean, this, again, as I say, we don't know for certain that this has happened. We have to effectively take his word for it, but it has the ring of truth about it. And that's why I just sort of feel it shows which way, in a way, politics have gone. That these highly militant people who are part of momentum, you know, let's be honest, it's most likely people like that who have been throwing bricks through windows of Labour MPs who didn't want to support Jeremy Corbyn. These are the people who are most likely trying to find out where the kids go to school of a Conservative member of Parliament. And when you hear things like that, it does make you sort of feel that something has currently gone awry in British politics, and it's badly gone awry on the left, and they need to sort themselves out pretty soon, or else one feels one should more than likely just set the security services on them and start locking people up, because we cannot have the political discourse corrupted by people who are little more than thugs.
Well, that's well said.
Did my coming to an end there take you by surprise, Mr. Oka?
No, I just don't have a ton of opinion on this. I just don't. I'm just listening, man. I was wondering when you were gonna. I wondered if Welshmertz had something to say about it.
I just would like to know. I mean, was he like attacked by regular people or by other politicians? That wasn't really clear to me at the beginning.
No, it seems to be kind of activists rather than politicians.
Yeah, people getting more and more angry. That is the point. I mean, there are more and more people who feel completely like they have no power at all to make whatever decision. They get more and more angry, and that this is the last resort. And I think it's getting more and more extreme. So that's the way it is. I mean, the politics are more extreme, or economic situation is more extreme. You mentioned the housing in England is more and more extreme, and that is the reaction from the people that you're gonna get. That is, I'm not saying I understand it or I support it. Yeah, that's not my point. But I'm not surprised.
No, I know full well what you mean. It's basically, if you just keep on cranking up the tension, this is the sort of thing you get. Yes.
Yes.
Yep. Well, we only got one more serious story, and then on to the balloon thing. I thought that was great. I think it's been done. I know it's been done, but this one's even more drastic. But what's this, Britt? I think this is last, like I said, serious story that I think stories will have an opinion on, one way or the other. I'm curious. I'm wondering if I'll agree with him, to be honest. Says Theresa May strikes again, man. Miss Run, Yell, and Tell. She wants to fix the gender pay gap.
Oh, goodness.
Yes.
You know, are women over there? Is there some law that there's not? Because here in the United States, that it's not possible, because we have laws that say, if you know, the whole idea, they come out, our politicians come out and they lie. They say, "Oh, they're doing the same job and making the." If there's anybody to show that.
I think it was in 1963. I could be wrong, but I think that's the year in which the Equal Pay Act came out in America. In Britain, it was 1970. So both our nations have laws that forbid anybody paying less to a woman to a man for the same job. At the same time, this pay gap logic doesn't make any sense, because if it really were cheaper to produce things with women, why would anyone employ a man? But of course, Theresa May is a self-professed feminist. Yes, we have feminists on the Conservative benches, not merely on the Labour benches.
Oh my God.
And therefore, once in a while, she comes out with some token gesture to show the sisterhood just how pucker a feminist she is. And this is her latest offering, whereby once again, it's you know, one is urging companies. I mean, I don't know to what extent this is yet. I mean, here it says, I think in the first paragraph, big companies will soon be required to publish pay gap data, but the Prime Minister now wants smaller firms to play their part, so that the companies will effectively have to analyze whether there is a gender pay gap and then publish the data accordingly.
Oh, man.
And you've just got the feeling, you know, so if this is some giant, if this is Google in London, I'm sure they will be able to produce this data. But if this is a small plumbing company that employs 10 people, I think they've got better things to do than provide the government with data.
Well, and they got to pay that person to do it, no matter what.
Precisely. Yes. And that's where I think, common sense, and this not being the common sense guy, but literal common sense goes out the window with these people. They just don't seem to get it. Look, we've established the principle, this gender pay gap is a fiction. Now let's just get on with it and start dealing with some real problems, rather than creating real world problems for real companies on the ground in trying to fix some fictional problem.
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, I really appreciate the work of the feminists, what they did in the 50s, 60s, 70s. That was all good and fair. No problem with it at all. But in these days, I mean, when you have like 50 students in a technical class like engineering, yeah, and 5 of them are women, then these 5 women are the first to get a job in these days, because every
for sure
is really happy to get a woman in this position.
Yep.
Yeah, look at all the boards of directors. I mean, they are desperately searching for women.
Well, the problem that I have is when you look at the transverse of that, and you look at psychology, where the graduating class of doctorate in child psychology is probably, if it's 1 in 10 male to female, I would be shocked, because it's probably no more than that, 1 to 10. And there is not the same consideration. So in other words, in a class of 100, where you have 10 males and 90 females, doctorates of child psychology, doctorates of abnormal psych, it'll be a little closer. Now you're looking at probably about, and again, it's because now you're getting into more technical things, by the way. Psst, I hate to, boys, I don't want anybody to hear me here, but you're getting into more technical stuff on the psychology end, and it's not just feels. And the closer you get to that, the bigger the ratio. But in all cases, there's more females than males, but you don't see that same phenomenon. So why aren't we saying It's not fair. In psychology, we need to encourage more boys to play also the oboe or the violin and get into drama and in the arts, because it's the same there too. You know, we don't see that. It's only ever talked about in this other era, and then like you, because you're not making an apology for that. I appreciate it, Stories, but what you're saying is, in the end, because there's so few females in this, they're going to get the jobs first. But when we look at the other, to transverse, so few males, they're not the first to get it. They're lucky to get a job.
Exactly. I mean, everybody, especially in the better paid jobs area, most companies in these days, they try to hire females, and they are not available. So that is the thing. And I mean, we have equality as good as it gets. I mean, men and women are different.
It reminds me of De Beers diamonds, of the diamond company De Beers. There's no real reason why diamonds are extremely expensive. We put them in saw blades, and people say, "Oh, those are industrial diamonds." They're diamonds. Instead of cutting them into facets, they smash them into little pieces and put it in a saw blade. Diamonds are plentiful. It's a manufactured need.
Yeah.
And Britisher Stories, when we're talking about, you know, quotas at the BBC and Doctor Who and all these things, and then now we're going, look, when it gets dangerous in my mind is when you start applying it to the hard sciences. When you start saying we have to have, you know, 1, 2, and 3 has to be this because they're the 3 females in the class. No. That has to fanatically be protected as a merit-based system only.
Well, you remember what I said when I did the piece for the Sargon channel, in which I basically said, look, we know how it works with the stem cell. We know how it works with the STEM subjects. So what we need to do is we need to find lots of young men who are talented at this, pile them into the universities. If we're short on money, fine, fire all the gender studies professors and get rid of those subjects, and get rid of everything that is just completely superfluous and pile it into those subjects which we need. Forget about the women's saying they need more women in STEM, and just pile them in on the basis of merit. That will be overwhelmingly male. I don't care, because if there's one thing we need, is we need the innovation to come out of those areas, rather than trying to hold them back. So as far as I'm concerned, that would be my priority.
Well, I'm going to say,
I really don't care how small a percentage of women there are in STEM.
And that's why I don't want to defend the position of the number of females to males in psychology, Britisher, because for the years I spent there in that realm, it's the way it should have been. I was one of the only weirdos that cared anything more than to learn that Pavlov was not a psychologist. He was actually a scientist studying digestive juices.
Well, actually,
you know, and you know, other than that,
actually, given, you know, you've just sort of somehow you've prompted me onto this, that there may be a way in which one could use their own arguments against them, because we know how many, you know, how much dross comes out of these gender studies courses.
Oh God.
And I've given people,
there's no gold left after the dross.
I've given people a few examples over the past weeks of stuff that comes from these professors who you know, publish their papers and write essays. Well, but then again, all of them are female. So surely, if we follow their principle, we should stop them publishing any more of their drivel until it's a 50-50 scale. So until there are sufficient male gender studies professors who are actually publishing these papers, we should refuse to accept any more papers from the female gender studies professors. It's only fair.
Yeah. And Wood's busting my balls. He said, "Hey, is your house on fire?" And we're about done with all this serious stuff. I promise that.
The problem is, for me, it is really this whole female thing, this whole feminist thing. It has become like a fashion trend, and that's why I refuse to call these modern feminists anymore. Because yeah, like 30 years, 40 years ago, that it had some substance, but in these days it is all pointless. It's only a fashion trend. When I see Madonna on these protests after the Trump election, I mean, Madonna is a feminist? Come on. It's ridiculous. She's not.
As you're saying that, I can hear working 9 to 5. It's all taking and no giving. Stay alive. You know what I mean? I can hear that as you were saying that, because there was a time, and I would say right when that came out, because those girls got together, man, it was so weird. Dolly Parton didn't say a word, but the other two blowhards, they say, I mean, all this stuff. Look,
well, when it comes to the feminists of the 70s and whatever, I would already say that by that time it had already gone bad.
That's what I'm trying to say.
When you listen to Germaine Greer, and if you listen to old stuff from McKinnon and Dworkin and writers like that, and Dworkin is pretty much the most quoted feminist. So these are not people who are just at the extreme edges, whom I am picking because it suits my narrative. No, I mean, these really were the leading minds of the feminist movement of the 1970s and so on. And I mean, it's just hideous. I mean, you read some of this stuff, and I mean, some of the stuff from Germaine Greer I read, I just had to set aside. It started making me feel ill. When you read things about, men just regard women as a spittoon for their bodily fluids, that doesn't paint a nice image in your mind. And you just sort of feel, how filled with hate must you be ever to come out with expressions like that? And this was already happening in the
really
1960s.
full.
It was already happening in the 1970s and whatever. So I would say by that time, it had already completely gone wrong. Everything since then has been a nonsense. If you read the book "Who Stole Feminism" by Christina Hoff Sommers,
Sommers, yeah, based mom.
She wrote that in the mid-90s, and it was already debunking all the nonsense, all the stuff about the gender gap, all the stuff about how many, 1 in 4 women on campus being raped, and all these things. She thoroughly debunked all those things, looking at the actual source material that was being used for those studies and whatever. She did a thorough destruction job on all those claims, and that's now over 20 years ago, and yet it's still at no point have we turned round and actually accepted that all these talking points that prime ministers are using in 2017 talking about the gender gap, whilst somewhere in the mid-90s these things had already been debunked. We are not moving forward. We are just going round and round and round in circles, because these people simply are not open to reason. They just simply don't want to hear that they are wrong. So it doesn't matter how thoroughly you prove them wrong. They will simply continue repeating it.
Don't blow your wad. We're getting close to the final word is all I'm saying. That was wonderful. Actually, sometimes even stories, that's why you're here, stories, in case you're wondering. Sometimes you boys, you transcend idea and kind of take me away, and I'm almost in a different place when I'm listening to your ideas. I'm imagining with you. I think that's the greatest thing next to the knowledge of death. That's the thing that separates us from the other animals, is that more than anything else, we can harmonize. We have a resonant frequency, stories, a resonant frequency. And, we resonate. You know, Tesla believed and started some rumors probably that with the right, if you could get the frequency of something, and you could have something so small, he called it earthquake machines, that it just would oscillate back and forth with a stationary base and a solid steel rod in that base that with electricity would oscillate back and forth from positive and negative poles by changing the frequency that faster or slower, that if he could find the resonant frequency, why, that he could crack the earth. And before somebody says I'm crazy, I'm not making this shit up. I'm not.
Yeah, but Tesla was not a genius in every aspect. In many aspects, but not in every aspect.
Okay, all right. Let me ask you this then, smarty pants. Are you saying he was wrong? If I could find something the proper size, mind you, and could attach it to the earth itself, and I could resonate with it, that I could not just make this thing wobble right apart.
Well, this frequency resonating, cracking thing applies to rugged objects, like stiff objects, but not to sandy grounds and these kind of stuff. If you put a pole into sand and you vibrate it, then the sand evens out and it's not cracking. That's a different thing, like in a bridge, which is steady, and then.
But what if you could find the resonant frequency for all of the individual grains of sand in that sand pile?
No, it's not helping you because it's evening out the sand.
Well, you're right, Britisher. That was probably the best answer that could have been given. That was logical. What you just said. Say it again, Brett.
Then you create finer sand.
So in other words, you'd have a tiny little resonator on each grain of sand. Yes, it would destroy it, and there'd be finer grains of sand. All I'm going to say is that on that crazy note, is that you can't disbelieve anything. And if someone is resonating, you know, if they're saying something that's true, got to kind of take it into consideration. Even you, horny hippo, even you, loafer, JD, Soda Rock, you too, Susie Monkey, you, all of you, you can see him here, Brett. You can see him right here. Wood, you too. You can see him, Britisher. The Order 1814, you too.
The deplorables.
All of these people, the deplorable ones, that for whatever crazy reason they have, Britisher, they seem to show up. You know, and I hear, look, we were talking about Lionel earlier. I'm going to talk about him now. Blah, 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 blah. Well, when I meant to, Britt, when I look at your channel and the number of subscribers you have versus the number of average people that come on Friday, the Friday show, man, I'm proud to be there. And when I look at, you know, I'm going to say this as humbly as I can. When I look at the channel that you helped me build here, I'm just so that channel you helped me build here. I see how many people are here. I mean, earlier today was like 30 people just chilling here. I mean, that's not bad for 1,000 people. It really isn't. When I look at other folks, I've seen people much larger that have 30 people there. I don't know. It just makes one feel good, man. And I just told the Britisher not to blow his wad, and I have something to say at the end. And it's probably sappy and stupid, man. I saw this thing today I'm going to share with people, Brett. It just broke my heart because, you know, maybe Gavin McGinnis is right on one thing. I'll share it with you all in a minute. One more thing, Brett, because this is as light-hearted as it's going to get with the balloon. So apparently there's people that are wanting to strap 800 party balloons, helium-filled rubbers, and put them on what do they want to do here? what are you talking about here? Put them on a chair?
Effectively, they want to have some kind of wacky race in which they're basically suspended in a camping chair. Because, I mean, one of them has actually done this. Basically, the chat, I think this Tom Morgan, the one who runs this this entire adventure, this entire guy who wants to do this wacky race, has done it in South Africa just recently. In which, yes, he is like in that Disney movie Up.
Look at that, bro.
effectively suspended, sitting in a camping
Look at that. This is real. This is not Photoshop. Let me be very clear. This right here is the Bristol Company's Upstyle Challenge to fly 8,000 feet in the air on chairs tied to party. But why 8,000 feet, you ask? What happens above 8,000 feet, Britisher?
Well, that's where the aircraft go.
Well, not only that, above 8,000 feet.
They pop, right? At 8,000 feet. I mean, they expand. The higher you fly, the more a balloon expands.
Yeah, and it's going to start losing it. So it won't go higher than that. And, you know, much higher than that, the human being, it's because of the density of the air. You know, you start to lose the ability to do the oxygen thing. Was it 10,000 feet stories? Around 10,000, 12,000, you need oxygen.
Yeah. I think the Mount Everest is about 8,000 something, right?
Oh,
and
Lord,
that
you
is
asked me that.
barely do without oxygen, yeah.
But yes, they're
8,000 meters.
They're intending to have some kind of ridiculous race in which they're obviously hoping for several people to be on camping chairs and to try, obviously, when the wind is in the right direction.
Okay. And Britisher, what's my question here? Do you know? Have you already figured out what my big, existential question is going to be about?
Why would a person do this?
Okay, no, that's a good question. But so answer that, and then I'll ask mine. Both of y'all answer that question.
I guess you will ask if they wear a parachute or not.
No, that's fine. No, just ask the one that Brit said, and then I'll give you my actual question.
Well, why would people do this? Well, that is one of the great secrets of being British. We are the ones who have invented all this nonsense. If you ask, why should 11 men kick a leather ball around and 11 other men should try and stop them? No one can explain it.
No.
It's just something we thought up. No. Why should grown men walk around a park with little holes in it and try and knock a little white ball into it? Oh. Nobody knows.
Britisher, have you ever seen the footage of your lot going to the Falkland Islands where they dressed up like with coconuts in there and they were dunking each other? They dressed up like girls, and the British, if you make them in the least bit bored, so carry on. I hate to go ahead. Crack on.
There is, as you were kind of alluding to there is a certain strain of insanity that runs through the British. That is the reason we've come up with all the games, if you know what I mean. It is also why we are a very creative nation. But yes, if you're trying to look for the reason why, that is when you will never understand the Brits. That basically we just do stupid things for the sake of it. We dream these things up and then we just try and put them into action. But looking for a reason for it, that is the wrong end at which to start.
Yeah, well, so I would ask you because this is obviously a dude thing, answer that same question, and I'll give you what was coming to my mind, because we always talk about the SJW side of things. But so stories, why would somebody do this? Get in a lawn chair and get
I have no clue. I mean, that's a British thing, and we have given up trying to understand the British at that point.
So should we permit, and I'll start with stories and go backwards before we give our last words. This is it, boys. Great roundup today too, British. I gotta thank you again. That's the last time. But should we permit it? I mean, in this day and age, what if the balloons pop? What if their thing fails? What if they don't have a parachute? Like Story said, I might ask that question. What if they don't have a parachute? All these things. Should people get involved? Since we can't really logically, I think we can all agree on this, answer the question why. It's because it's Everest. It's there. So should we try to stop it?
Whom are you asking?
No, both of y'all. I want to start with stories. I mean, should we try to, because everything seems like today.
No. In my opinion, don't stop it. No. Every person has a right to be stupid and do stupid things. As long as he hurts nobody else, I'm totally fine with it.
Well,
That's good.
You may recall some time ago on the week that was, I had a little report, a reference to the Gloucester cheese rolling event.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Which is an extremely steep slope.
That's worse than Pamplona and the Bulls.
Where people seek to run after a full double Gloucester cheese being rolled down the hill.
It's a slope, man. It's like
if it would be a little more of a gradient steeper, it would be a cliff.
A cliff. You can't stand on this thing. It's like people think a hill.
People try to run / slide after the cheese. Sooner or later, most of them begin tumbling, and it's famous for constantly creating injuries. Now, the authorities have tried to close it down. They have tried to do the health and safety thing, but one has so far always succeeded in avoiding a close down. But when it, here we see some of the pictures, and any moment now you'll see some people hurling by. When everyone tries to build up the tension for the moment, you can be sure it won't happen. But one has tried to close it down, and one has so far failed. Now, health and safety is everywhere these days. They try and make everything bland and homogeneous. But I think there is something within the human spirit, and perhaps it is exaggerated with the British, but there is something in the human spirit that just makes people want to know that there are still things they can do in which it is their decision whether they actually do it or not, in which they don't have to somehow conform to some authority up on high which decides on their behalf whether they be permitted to do it or not. And
look at this lot. Look at this page. And look at that slope, man. Look at that, man. Oh my gracious, man. Yeah, and the people, look at that. For anybody that don't, I mean, hopefully you can see the people on the side how much taller the ones on this is just. And did you see that guy with the blue, the spangles? I mean, look at these people.
I think it's what's referred to as not the faint of heart.
Oh no! Did you see that, Rick? This is even like
they will ask you to sign a waiver before you take part in this race.
At the base of this hill, there's ambulances also. They're there. They're ready.
Yes.
In this, you can see they've tried to kind of clear it out, but there's still it's such rugged ground that when you hit it, man, there might be like the tip of a stone that weighs 500 pounds. No kidding. That is like right there under the ground, but just the tip of it sticking up now. I mean, you know, when these people get hurt, this is insane. I'm sorry, Brett, but you mentioned Gloucester. Because I think if there's two things I would like to do, Britisher, okay, before I die, I would like to run with the Bulls in Pamplona.
Oh,
and
goodness.
I would love to do that. I would do it right. Stories. I would put on the doughboy outfit, the whole nine, the little red thing, you know, the little red tie and whatnot, and I would fucking run the Bulls. And then I would like to go to Gloucester more than the tomato fight. You know, that's kind of seems okay, but this is the other one. This is the second on the list. Would love to go here and just what the hell, just one time. Now I would at least put a bicycle helmet on. But, you know, chase the cheese. Why? Why not?
Chances are they wouldn't allow you to wear a bicycle helmet.
They don't let you do it, huh?
Because you would more than likely they would think you become too much of a danger with your helmet to the others in the race.
Other people, right? I didn't think about that.
Because then you become a cannonball, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, you're right. Nobody wears anything like that. I did notice that. No knee pads, no nothing.
You, of course, also noticed that in rugby, that they don't tend to wear motorbike helmets and lots of shoulder padding. We leave that to the colonials.
Yeah, but even in American football, many people promote that there shouldn't be helmets because then you have less injuries, because people would play more carefully. I heard that in American football too.
Oh
Yeah,
yes, no, I think I think American football could be greatly improved by taking the helmets off them, taking the padding off them, and perhaps putting them in less tight pants.
Yeah, no, and they're like just digging up in there too, Brett.
Something a little less homoerotic.
Yeah, and they're always digging up in there, like they're trying to dig something. Oh, I can't stand those sports like that. Yeah, at least when you're looking at, in fact, the only sport that y'all might even halfway like or know of that I can tolerate is cricket, because I mean they got their cricket stuff on, and it's okay. Baseball is I don't know why I don't, because it seems like it's similar to cricket. Anyway, I don't even care. This is a sport now. Look at this. Look at that. Get the ball.
But when it comes to cricket,
the ball wiped out.
When it comes to cricket, you have to understand that you are standing there in the direct path of somebody bowling a ball at you, with which he's pretty much trying to kill you.
Yeah, remember when I was trying to be cool with the white YouTuber here, Brett? I was like, they bowl at like 30 miles an hour. We actually found out that they do throw that ball faster than they do in the in baseball.
Oh no, they come running. I mean, the entire body weight of the person coming running towards you at a considerable lick.
Would you do this? Would you do this? Now look, Brett, look at this scene. Now, if this was me right here, the fool that's running toward the bulls, would you let at least this be you, the guy that like came with me that is now realizing the bulls are coming and running away? Would you even get on the street with me?
I don't know. I think I'm just not Spanish enough to do something like this.
Really? You wouldn't even be there. Oh man, I bet I could talk you into it. What I have to do is, because I know you're not a drinker, if I could just find some fruity drink and just get you to have like one or two.
Talking of bulls and Spaniards,
yeah.
What do we make of bullfighting?
Oh, I love it, man. The first time I've seen it, Brett, Mrs. Ogre and I, and she's right out there, man. This is no joke. I know she can hear me. We were in Mexico, and the TV was on, and they were showing something I'd never seen in America. And so the next day, we had tickets to go see a bullfight. And it's not for everyone, and you have to understand there's a cultural thing. But dude, I've got to say this. Don't take it away. Don't belittle it. Matador means murderer, means killer. That was just on The Chase with the Beast. I don't know if you've ever seen that, Brit, but they got this big old fat guy from England, man. He's so smart, dude. He's like my hero. But anyway, that said, bullfighting, it's a glorious thing. It's a celebration of the harvest, Britisher. It's a celebration of machismo and masculinity. Look at this. And just like this, yes, this might be the Brit. If you went to Pamplona with me, that could be you. But look and think of the glory. Like if you died there, it'd be like they'd put on it's what they put on Bon Scott's death certificate, if anybody knows. Death by misadventure. And isn't that better than like died in one's sleep? What do you want to do? And look at that. Look at that. That's beautiful. This is beautiful. So with bullfighting, that was my answer. Leave it alone. If there's people that want to go watch it, leave it alone. Too dramatic. It's like everybody's stunned. It's like the bull. I haven't gotten a warning though, Britt. This has been totally cool. I've been playing this whole time. They haven't said a damn thing. Can't believe it.
Well, when it comes to bullfighting, I remember that I saw a program once on which they showed some of the greatest bullfighters alive in Spain do their thing. They also showed some of the, let's say lesser able bullfighters.
That's right.
And yes, you could tell immediately the difference between the amateur and the out and out professional. I mean, and the out and out professional has to have something of a madman about him. And they showed the absolute superstar who, I mean, according to, Spaniards as such, I mean, they're pretty much a god. If you are the top matador in the country, you are like a rock star.
Oh, more than you're like a rock star and a preacher and you're every cool thing on earth rolled up into.
They had this man. They had this man who was clearly, a prime example of a male walk into the arena. And he got to the center of the arena. There was lots of cheering. And then they opened a gate. And out of the gate came a bull that made this black bull look like a dwarf. I mean, this was something from the abyss. I mean, it was unreal. And it came out and it was angry. It wanted to kill something. And as it started out towards him, he fell to his knees. I mean, he was kneeling with this thing galloping at him at full speed. And you just thought, well, hang on a moment, he's prone.
That's the point, Britisher. That's the final stroke.
He's on his knees. He's on his knees. There's no way he can get away.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And as this thing kind of head down, horns foremost, came charging at him, ready to tear him apart, at pretty much the last moment, he flickered the red cloth and guided it past him. But he never moved. It was solely done with the cloth. And you just thought, well, at that moment, it was at that precise moment that I understood bullfighting. That it was literally the defiance of death.
Yes.
That here was somebody standing who was pretty much spitting the devil in the eye, who was effectively saying, well, this is almost one of the archetypes of fear, if you would, listen to someone like Jung.
For sure.
And at the same time, he will show it not the slightest bit of respect. He will demonstrate the superiority of man over the beast.
Over the beast, yes.
And the moment I saw that, I'd hitherto never really seen any bullfighting or anything like that, but the moment I saw that one thing, I immediately understood what it was about.
Oh, and are these people cowards, Brett? Aren't they cowards?
No, not at all. You would have to be an exceptionally brave person to be. And yes, to those people who don't understand it, in a way, I pity them. Not because, I feel they are somehow inferior, but simply because I think there is something they don't understand.
About what? Understand about what? Tell us. I think I know.
Well,
look at the British. Look at the way
it's something primal. It is something primal. It's literally the man against the beast, and basically the whole thing that the matador displays. It isn't, as you just put it out, matador would mean killer or whatever. It isn't that. That is not what he is primarily there to display. Because when you look at the matador, he is, in his splendid golden outfit. He always looks absolutely in control, both of himself and everything around him. And that is, in a way, what he is there to demonstrate. He is there to demonstrate that man is, in a way, the supreme creature, and that he stands above the animals. And that even something like this monster, he can defy it and he can defeat it. He can outwit it.
Outwit it.
And
because obviously the beast has much more brawn. There's no doubt about the strength.
As such, when it comes to the sheer power of the beast, it can tear him apart. It can make mincemeat out of him.
With nothing, like nothing.
And it's how shall we say, when it comes to these sort of displays, look at this example here. It is that grace that he possesses, even in the face of such a beast. He nonetheless still remains graceful. And that, I think, is the kind of demonstration at the heart of it. And yes, I understand why people say, oh, this is cruel and the poor animal and so on. But I think there is something there that they don't understand.
They've never seen a matador be gored.
Oh yes, I mean it's desperately dangerous for them. Yes, I mean one false move and you're a goner.
Yeah, and I'm being told it's getting long on the tooth anyway, boys. About another 25, not even that. About another. In fact, we got enough time for final words, and Mrs. Ogre's telling me my tea's on, and that's what's going to happen on this time. I've just, I mean, we got so many things. I have so many things I could say. So what I'll do is, with this thing, I just tore up my notes. I got something completely off the cuff, but you know the drill here. I think Weltschmerz stories. What we do is at the end of each show, we like to have each individual person get on their soapbox. Anything you want to say. The ogre's a mouth-breathing moron. Britisher drinks his steaks with a straw. They don't know any. You know, we don't care. We welcome any kind of opinion. We don't even talk while you're speaking. And what we'll do is we'll go from you to the Brit and then to myself, and we'll give our final words. It's been a great show too, boys, since we're not going to say much from here on out. I sure appreciate it, but I wouldn't expect to fill the Common Sense Guy's shoes. Stories, I'm glad you were here. It was nice to have you here, but he's got the kind of shoes that just, you know, it could be filled. But thanks a lot, gentlemen. So go ahead, Stories, take it away.
Yeah, well, at first, let me say thank you for inviting me. Pleasure to be here. But I would like to say a word about the bullfighting thing. I don't get it. I'm one of these poor people who don't understand it. I mean, I don't want to judge it. It's not part of my culture. It's Spanish culture, and so I don't blame them. But I totally don't get it. It's, for me, that is something that is left from our animal brain, and can contribute to that. And the thing I like with the bullfighting is that the bull has a chance to kill the matador, but that is the only part. So I'm desperately shouting for the bull and not for the matador. So that's my opinion on that. And yeah, thank you for inviting me. Nice show as usual. And yeah, that is it from my side.
Okay, well, I mean, you know, as usual, I have absolutely no idea what I'm about to say, so please forgive me what's about to follow. I think sort of, as they taking on from the bullfighting, as Weltschmerz said, it's something terribly Spanish. It's something that makes the Spanish in that regard, I guess. All the countries in, you know, on this continent have kind of got their own individual quirks, which the others can't understand, and yet which so clearly set them apart. And that kind of ties into, you know, the whole British thing that we were talking about before, with why would anyone suspend themselves from balloons at 8,000 feet in a camping chair and try and have a race across some part of South Africa? Well, you would have to be British. I mean, that is something that kind of clearly sets us apart. And I touched upon it when I said it may be that chaotic side of us makes us a more creative nation. Because when it comes to sort of the big inventions and big things, that the British have been pretty foremost in sort of the last 200-300 years. And it may be that it is that chaotic nature, because something similar, of course, was said about the ancient Greeks, that the Romans, they were the orderly ones. They were the ones who were terribly well organized and could do everything terribly efficiently. But it was the Greeks who were completely chaotic and quarrelsome and utterly unorganized. But they were the ones who invented everything. And in that respect, perhaps the British have that sort of strange thing, but that it comes with various things attached to it. That if you want to have the nation that gives you the Beatles and the steam engine, then yes, you also have to accept the nation that suspends itself from balloons, or goes climbing Mount Everest, or tries for some bizarre reason to reach the South Pole without sledgehounds. Why? Well, just because. We have in a way long since even tried to understand ourselves why we do these things. If we hear that, oh, yet some other nutter has gone off to the South Pole to try and cross this or that particular piece of land and set a new record, by now we all kind of just shrug. We just go, yeah, here's another one. It seems to be part of us. And it is utterly insane and a complete waste of time, but in a strange way also oddly admirable. And I think in that regard, the British pit themselves against the odds in that same way that the Spaniards do with that bullfight. That it's not the bull, it's, you know, it's the 8,000 feet beneath your camping chair. It's Jonah Lomu steaming towards you, ready to tear you apart. It's, you know, frostbite somewhere up on Mount Everest. That somehow there is still that primal thing there. However abstract society becomes, however much you put health and safety into it, however much we have a Theresa May trying to tell us about the gender pay gap, in the end, we still have that strange primal thing of wanting to do the fantastical. I mean, who knows? Perhaps that was one of the reasons we built an empire, not just exploitation and slavery and all those ghastly things that everyone now tries to attribute to us, but just the fact of doing something almost ridiculous. And I think that is sort of one of the things that makes the British strangely British. And just as bullfighting is incomprehensible to the Germans, apparently, so I guess we will always remain completely incomprehensible to the rest of the world. And that's more than likely a good thing. So thank you very much, and I shall hand over to the yoga.
Oh, thank you, Britisher. I will aspire to keep this under 10 minutes. Why? Well, I think basically because if you can't give somebody an idea, and I only have one tonight, if you can't give an idea in 10 minutes, I used to preach, and when I preached, you know, people would come up to me, some of the people, like it was always the old deacons or the old elders, you know, the head of the church, you know, be like, you know, Mr. Ogre, the sermon was only 25 minutes from the time you gave the, you know, the scripture verse from the time and until you get the benediction. It was 25 minutes. You know, what are you, lazy? And my answer was always the same. If you can't say what you want to say in 25 minutes of rapt attention, even the children are supposed to pay attention. Mom will be mad if they don't. You can't say it. After that, you're just grandstanding. So I'm going to focus on the bullfight. I had something else, man. The Britisher and I, whether he likes to admit it or not, it's a sibling rivalry, colony versus mother island, whatever it may be. We always like to, you know, at the very least, do the best we can do, whether or not it's a competition. But I know the Brit, I know myself. In the base of our hearts, we both want to be the best. So I threw that thing out that I'd planned on it. Why? Because in the end, I don't need to understand that it's not just Spain, it's Mexico also, man. I can't speak to Central and South America. I'm thinking they may, but I don't know. I've been to Mexico. I've been to bullfights in Mexico. I know they have them there. I know what they do. It's beautiful. So many things have been robbed from manhood, Britisher. We used to be able, and don't get me wrong, please, Britt or anyone else, you just take this for what it is. Say what you want to. But we used to be able to wear rouge and powdered wigs and frilly, cool stuff with lots of colors, man. Silk, you know? We used to be able to look good, to be peacocks, if you will. Why? Because we die, because we give our lives willingly in service to country, in service to family, in service of a way to make a living. In what better way? Apparently I'm learning something here, and this is just, I don't know for sure, because the reference I have now is TheBritisher in Welsh stories. This is a Spanish origin with the bullfight. But man, I just, even to start like that, I felt bad that I started with man. I'm going to tell you something, people. Look at that man. Look at him. I want to find the words while you see this. And I didn't see any warning before, so hopefully this is something I can just show you. I think it is. But look at the socks. They were what I would call salmon. Some people might mock his dress. Look at the bells on his shoulder plates there. I mean, look at the stitching. He's beautiful. He is not making an apology for his beauty or his strength and his daring. He's goading the bull, now stuck. I wish I could remember the name of these sticks, but now stuck with these mini harpoons and bleeding, confused and angry, so angry. I mean, if anybody's ever seen one go wrong, it can go wrong, and it goes drastically wrong from the matador. Why would we want to rape our society of this beauty, of this expression of all-out machismo, manliness, and dominance over one's surroundings and over the things that by all rights should dominate that man? Wow, ogre, man. Yes, you're fucking right, man. We have to thank womankind for what we thank him. But this beautiful human being in his wonderfully embroidered costume, with his complete daring on display for everyone to see. And the fact that, yes, he will be the one to deliver that death stroke to this animal and actually end this animal's life. And they don't throw it in the garbage, they eat it. It's all a beautiful thing. And I would say this, and just wrap it up here, I think I'm getting nigh on my 8 minutes. Let's not throw away tradition. Tonight's Devil's Night here in Michigan. And that means I'm going to be up most of the night and making sure that I don't get vandalized or anything. It's pretty crazy up here. It's the night before Halloween. I don't want that to go away either. Before we throw away traditions, before we tell the young folks that they're pumpkin smashing or they're bullfighting, whatever it is that they do, that we do, that shows manliness, machismo, and a mastery of one's surroundings, even if that looks a little bit like Viking raiding, let's give it a break. And be good to your friends. Be good to your family members. Be good to your loved ones. Have a good Halloween. Be quick to say you're sorry. Be even quicker to accept an apology, especially when that thing your friend, family member, or loved one has done seems to be so huge, you'll never be able to forget about it. Because you know what, constant viewers? At a time you think not, your friends, your family members, your loved ones, your life, your cause, in all the beautiful bullfighting that's ever existed will depart from you.